Chapter 91. Seeing this scene, Yang Chung, who knew the cause of the matter, could roughly guess who Anshin was talking about. From the two Mercedes-Benz came a few men in black suits, followed by two men, one old and one young. The older one looked to be in his early 50s. His black and white hair was neatly combed behind his head, his hearty face without the slightest wrinkle. It seemed that he usually took care of his health. There were not too many traces of aging. The younger one was wearing a white suit and a red tie, at the same time in high spirits, his handsome face with a sunny smile. As soon as he got off the car, he followed slightly behind the older one, looking close and respectful. "That's your dad? He really took good care of himself. He might have been more handsome than me when he was young. It seems that your genes are indeed very good." Yang Chung pointed to the middle-aged man who walked over. His face was ashen. Anshin did not see the slightest panic on Yang Cheng's face and asked curiously, "You're not leaving? My dad must want to tear you to pieces right now." "Of course I'm leaving, but your dad is already in front of me. If I leave without saying goodbye, I will be running away. I don't like the word running away," Yang Chung said with a smile. Without waiting for Anshin to persuade him, the father who had already walked in front of him said, "You can't run away even if you want to. Dad, if you want to settle this matter, take it out on me. It has nothing to do with him." An Xian took a step forward and stood in front of Yang Chun, standing in between her father and Yang Chun. With a calm expression, she said, "I was the one who seduced him. Your daughter, an Xian, is now a used shoe, and it won't take long for her to be on the tabloids. Everyone will know that the daughter of the chairman of the group, and Zaihuan, had hooked up with a stranger in a nightclub before her marriage, and stayed overnight in the hotel owned by her fiancé's family." "Pa!" A loud slap suddenly fell on Anshin's white, tender face. A red palm print appeared. "You evil creature! You want to anger me to death." And Zaihuan widened his bloodshot eyes and said in a trembling voice. His right hand, which had just finished slapping Chu Yang's face, was raised in mid-air as if it would fall again at any time. Anshin did not avoid it. She chuckled and gracefully stroked her messy long hair. "If it's not enough, you can hit me a few more times. Anyway, you brought me into this world. You have the right to hit me. I don't care. You shouldn't have done this. Ever since you were young, you've never disappointed me. You've always been very obedient. Why?" And Zaihuan looked at his only daughter and asked with heartache. Anshin looked straight at her father, then glanced at the expressionless man in white and smiled sadly. "That's right. I've listened to you since I was a child because you said that I was the hope that my mother left in this world. When I was 7 years old, you said you wanted me to learn the piano. I spent less than a year to get the first prize in the National Children's Piano Competition. When I was 9 years old, you let me learn ballet from a dance teacher. When I was 13, I went to Vienna to participate in the Russian National Dance Troupe. I learned painting, flower arrangement, and all the things that children of nobles should learn. As long as you wanted me to do it, I would do it, and I would try my best to do it. When you said that it was difficult for you to choose between Oxford and Cambridge, I forgot to eat and sleep to get a master's degree from those two universities. Ever since I was young, as long as you mentioned my deceased mother and told me not to disappoint her expectations of me, I would do my best to do it. But..." Anshin's eyes were a little red and crystal clear. She smiled bitterly and said, "But my deceased mother won't force me to marry someone I don't want to marry. You want me to marry him?" Anshin pointed at the man in the white suit who had been silent all this time and said with a sneer, "This person is only a relative of your lover. For the sake of your lover, you completely disregard my feelings and want me to marry a complete stranger and a man I don't like. I am your daughter. That woman only accompanied you for 2 years, and you listen to everything she says, completely ignoring everything I do. Is this also for the sake of my deceased mother?" "Enough!" And Zaihuan shouted, and then he started coughing violently. He pointed at Anshin, but he couldn't say a word. The man in the white suit revealed a nervous expression and said with a frown, "Uncle, and don't be so agitated." Anshin just couldn't think it through. She is still young, and she will always be rebellious and make mistakes. Let me talk to her. Hearing the man's words, and Zaihuan revealed a gratified expression and nodded with difficulty. "Lu Yun, it is our own family that has let you down. Anshin, this unfilial daughter, has let you down. I have never let him down. I have never promised him anything. I have the freedom to sleep with any man. Anshin said in a stern voice. Luyan didn't mind. He comforted Zai Huan and smiled at Anshin. Anshin, don't be willful. Uncle and Aunt are really worried about you after this happened. Hurry and come home with us. This is our family's matter. What does it have to do with you? Anshin turned her head and ignored Luyan. Luyan still didn't get angry. He smiled warmly and advised, all right. This is your family's matter, but even as a friend, I still want you two to sit together and have a good talk. Anshin, I know you are not satisfied with marrying me. We have indeed not known each other for long, but I am sincere towards you. From the first time I saw you, I couldn't forget you. Please give me time. After we get married, I will let you know that choosing me is the right decision. Are you crazy? You still want to marry me? Anshin looked at Lu Yun in disbelief. You want to marry a broken shoe, a slut in other people's eyes as your wife? Jade Clouds Corporation's young CEO Lu. Is your brain having a fever? When Yang Chung heard this, he couldn't help but be surprised. This young man, Lu Yun, was actually the Jade Clouds Corporation's young master. Anshin, this little demoness, was really vicious. Not only did she destroy her own reputation, she also wanted to disgust her fiancé's family. She caused such a thing in their family's business. If he hadn't brought her to the Jade Clouds Hotel last night, Anshin would have brought it up herself. At this time, Lu Yun shook his head. I am sincere and serious when I say these words to you. And Zai Huan was quite touched. He originally thought that this matter would ruin the marriage. He didn't expect Lu Yun to be so magnanimous. He immediately said, Lu Yun, you are really a good child. This girl Anshin doesn't know what's good for her. She disobeyed her elders and did such a dirty thing. You still want to marry her. I really didn't misjudge you, Anshin. Quickly apologized to Lu Yun. Anshin coldly snorted and turned her head away. You, and Zai Huan suddenly became angry. Do you want to anger me to death? At this time, seeing that no one paid attention to him, Yang Chung couldn't help but say, that, if you don't have anything else for me, I'll leave first. I'm already late for work today. I can't delay it any longer. Only then did they remember that the perpetrator was still there, and Zai Huan treated the unfamiliar Yang Chung as a thief who had a relationship with his daughter. Naturally, he didn't have a good expression on his face. He was so angry that he smiled and said, You want to escape? Do you think you can escape unscathed after seducing my daughter and making her commit such a big mistake? Uncle, what do you want to do? Yang Chung bitterly smiled. Things have already happened. I can't let your daughter become a virgin again. You bastard. And Zai Huan didn't expect that not only was Yang Chung not afraid, but he also didn't show any fear as if it was a matter of course. Lu Yun's expression changed. With a gentle expression, he looked at Yang Chung and said, Mister, may I know your name? My name is Yang Chung. If Mr. Lu is unhappy that I took away your fiancé's body, you can say it out loud. You can even scold me a few times. I know. Men always don't like it when someone takes away their daughter, even if she hasn't become your woman yet. Yang Chung touched his head. He didn't know what to do. This matter was simply a mess. Lu Yun smiled and said, Mr. Yang is a sensible person, but I don't have any intention to retaliate against Mr. Yang. I just hope that this matter can be settled to a minimum. Anshin is my beloved fiancée. Her accident this time was caused by me not taking care of her well. I can't absolve myself from the blame. If Mr. Yang doesn't mind, we can actually solve this matter peacefully. As long as Mr. Yang keeps his mouth shut, when someone asks about this matter, just deny it. Deny? The reporters are already here. What's the use of denying it? Yang Chung said. Lu Yun smiled confidently. Mr. Yang probably doesn't know, but our Jade Clouds Corporation's media industry is also quite successful. The first-hand information obtained by the media this morning has basically been controlled. So Mr. Yang can rest assured that there won't be any negative news or pictures that will affect Mr. Yang's image. All we need to do is to deny everything. Then, whether it's Anshin or Mr. Yang, there won't be any trouble. Yang Chung finally understood. The Jade Cloud Corporation's young CEO really had some skills. He could even control the media channels in Zhonghai. and Zaihuan happily clapped his hands. Nephew Lu Yun, you really have a way. The Lu family really isn't comparable to ordinary small families like ours. This way, I can rest assured. Say this girl did this kind of stupid thing and ruined her reputation. Even if she marries into the Lu family next time, she will still be despised by others. Uncle, rest assured. If others dare to say anything bad about Anshin, I, Lu Yun, will definitely do my best to protect Anshin from harm. As Lu Yun said that, his eyes full of love looked at Anshin again. Anshin finally had some feelings, but it wasn't because of Lu Yun's eyes full of love, but because Lu Yun's methods caught her off guard. If her plan of using the media to ruin her reputation failed, then she would definitely have to marry into the Lu family. She had no other choice. Now, the only hope was that Yang Cheng wouldn't deny all of this. He would tell the truth about what happened that night. Then, the sealed information would be useless, because the words of the person involved were the most convincing. However, if Yang Cheng told the truth, it would mean that he would have to bear the label of adulterer, which would affect his reputation. In a situation where there was a choice, who would be so bored as to bear the label of being despised by others? Anshin's face became a little pale. She turned her head to look at the silent Yang Cheng. She had only known this man for less than a day, but he had taken away her virginity that she had cherished for more than 20 years. Would he still be like last night, a brave knight, and lead her out of the thorny bushes in front of her? It was unknown when Yang Cheng took out a cigarette from his pocket and lit it up. He frowned and puffed out smoke rings. He looked like an old farmer. Compared to the successful Lu Yun in front of him, it was like heaven and earth. Lu Yun's face was full of confidence and smile. He was proud and gentle, as if this handsome young man was supposed to be like this. Seeing that Yang Cheng didn't speak for a long time, as if he was thinking, he wasn't in a hurry. Does Mr. Yang feel wronged in this matter? If Mr. Yang doesn't mind me meddling, I am willing to pay a certain amount of compensation to Mr. Yang. As long as Mr. Yang keeps your mouth shut and protects my fiancé and Mr. Yang's reputation. There's no need. Yang Cheng waved his hand and flicked the ash off his cigarette. He frowned and looked at the anxious Anshin. Then he smiled at Lu Yun, who seemed to have everything under his control, and said, I'm not a great person, nor am I a coward. But I slept with a woman and then said afterwards that it didn't happen. This kind of thing I can't do. Chapter 92. As soon as Yang Cheng finished speaking, the scene instantly froze. Everyone's expression was very interesting. Lu Yun and Zaihuan both suspected that they had heard wrongly. Following that, Zaihuan's anger surged again, while Lu Yun, on the other hand, narrowed his eyes and an unfathomable light flashed through them. The most excited person was none other than Anshin. She cried tears of joy, crystal clear tears flowing out of her eyes. He was still that night who disregarded everything and rushed out of the encirclement for her. F*CK, his grandma's reputation. F*CK, his grandma's money. F*CK, his grandma's tight-lipped mouth. He did it. There was nothing that couldn't be said. This man, who smoked the choking, low-quality tobacco, had an average appearance, and she had only known him for less than a day. For her absurd plan, used his reputation to protect her shaky dignity. Yang Cheng, I love you to death. As if she had returned to heaven from hell, Anshin happily threw herself into Yang Cheng's embrace. Her hands hooked around Yang Cheng's neck, and she didn't care that Yang Cheng had just smoked a cigarette. She fiercely kissed Yang Cheng's lips. Even if there was her father, fiancé, and bodyguard around them. So what? Get the F*CK out of here. I want to kiss this man. Yang Cheng, on the other hand, was a little shy. Girls nowadays were so pure. Him acting like a hoodlum was a handsome performance in their eyes, and she even took the initiative to kiss him. Well, although it wasn't as good as smoking, it was better than kissing in front of her father and fiancé. This kind of psychological superiority was not bad, especially when Lu Yun was young and rich, and he looked more like a dog than me. But in the end, didn't your woman still throw herself into my arms? Woo-woo. Yang Cheng vaguely said, Anshin, you don't bite my tongue. Anshin couldn't help herself. She left a lot of wet kiss marks on Yang Cheng's mouth, face, and even neck before she reluctantly left. She looked at Yang Cheng with eyes full of gratitude, and Zai Huan, who was already on the verge of fainting from anger, saw his daughter being intimate with a wild man in front of him. He was so angry that he almost vomited blood. His teeth trembled as he looked at the two of them, but he couldn't say anything. He could only gasp for breath. Lu Yun's face sank, but he wasn't angry. He told Zai Huan not to be too agitated, lest he hurt his body. After comforting him for a while, he turned around gracefully and said, "Mr. Yang, it seems that you're not willing to cooperate." Yang Cheng chuckled and said, It's not that I don't want to cooperate, but I don't have the habit of lying through my teeth, especially when it comes to this kind of serious matter. People live with a face, and trees live with a layer of skin. I can't ignore a girl's chastity. I believe that if young Master Lu truly likes Anshin, then you should understand this. If I didn't truly love her, I wouldn't have tried so hard to help her cover up. Yang Cheng shook his head, and for the first time, he showed a serious look. What do you want to cover up? You're not only covering up her body, but also her dignity. If you really love her, you should love everything about her. Even if she has slept with 100, 1,000, or 10,000 men, you should accept it calmly instead of trying to cover up the truth. Unless what you love is only the original body and not everything about Anshin other than the body. Mr. Yang, take back your absurd words. Don't doubt my sincerity for my fiancée. Lu Yun's face turned ugly. Anshin couldn't hide her emotions. The tears that she had just wiped away were about to burst out again. She patted Yang Cheng's chest with resentment. You're so annoying. You always say things that make me cry. Do you still want me to accompany you to bed? It's not good to do it in broad daylight. Yang Cheng smiled awkwardly. He was just speaking the truth. Seeing the two flirting as if there was no one else around, Lu Yun couldn't bear it anymore. He narrowed his eyes. Mr. Yang, please conduct yourself with dignity. Anshin is still my fiancée, and I won't change my decision to marry her. If you want to be lucky enough to see our wedding unscathed, then you'd better not pester my fiancée anymore. Hearing these somewhat threatening words, Yang Cheng instinctively became unhappy. He sneered, how I interact with my little baby is my freedom. As for whether or not I can see you and Anshin getting married, that depends on whether or not Anshin is willing to marry you. I think this question is still worth discussing. At this moment, and Zai Huan caught his breath. He was already unable to restrain his anger, and he loudly reprimanded, You're a beast that ate a bear's heart and leopard's guts. Who do you think you are? Do you really think that we can't touch you just because this stinking brat is protecting you? As long as I and Zai Huan still have a single breath left in me, I definitely won't let a bastard like you live a good life. Do you believe that I won't get someone to beat you up right now? You're not allowed to hurt him. Seeing that her father was really going to make a move, Anshin hurriedly spread her arms to protect Yang Cheng. Her heart was already filled with guilt and gratitude towards Yang Cheng. How could she care about anything else? Yang Cheng sneered as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. He gently and irresistibly pulled Anshin behind him. He took a few steps forward and said to Zai Huan and Lu Yun, I've been quite poor recently. I'm not as rich as you guys, and I don't have as many subordinates as you. My car isn't as expensive as yours either. However, that doesn't mean that I'll let you guys bully me. I don't have the habit of relying on women to be my windshield. Face is earned with your own hands, not with your mouth. At this point, Yang Cheng's face was terrifyingly gloomy. His penetrating gaze made Zai Huan and Lu Yun feel a bit uncomfortable. Old man, let me tell you, I hate it when people threaten me the most. I, Yang Cheng, am standing in front of you today. I have a pair of hands, a pair of legs, and a dick that's thicker than yours. I've fucked your daughter. I've fucked her more than once or twice. I've fucked her more than 10 times in one night. Are you as capable as I am? I've fucked her, and I've been very happy. Your daughter is also very happy. Who knows? I might even let your daughter give me a son in a few days. What can you do to me? What do you want? I. Hearing such vulgar words, and Zai Huan's eyes rolled back. He was so angry that he fainted before he could say anything. A few bodyguards hurriedly supported him, and carried him back to the car. When Anshin heard Yang Cheng's unrestrained words, her cheeks turned crimson. She was also surprised that she wasn't angry. Instead, she felt sweet in her heart. Looking at Yang Cheng's not tall figure standing in front of her, she felt a sense of security and stability like a mountain. Lu Yun, on the other hand, had been stimulated to the limit of his endurance. No one had ever dared to provoke him so openly in front of him. He sneered and said, "Mr. Yang, you will regret your rude actions. Regret your sister." As Yang Cheng spoke, he suddenly rushed forward. His hand was like an electric snake as it suddenly grabbed Lu Yun's neck. "Young master." Several bodyguards didn't have time to react. They saw Lu Yun's neck being grabbed by Yang Cheng, stopping the most fatal part. "Let go of our young master." Several bodyguards shouted angrily, but they didn't dare to act rashly, because they saw the vigorous anger in Yang Cheng's eyes and even murderous intent. Lu Yun saw that he was caught, so he tried to hit Yang Cheng with his fists and feet to make him release him. But how could his strength from daily exercise be enough for Yang Cheng? A few punches and kicks on Yang Cheng's body were like scratching an itch. Yang Cheng sneered. He used a little force and grabbed Lu Yun's neck. He lifted Lu Yun's body that weighed more than 100 pounds with one hand and grabbed him in the air. It was as light as a rag doll. "You, let go of our young master." The bodyguards were anxious, but they did not dare to underestimate the strength of this extremely strong man. If he used his strength, he would break Lu Yun's neck. After all, barefooted people were not afraid of wearing shoes, and they would not be able to bear the consequences. Lu Yun almost couldn't breathe. His face turned red, and he began to struggle with all his might. But he couldn't break free from Yang Cheng's steel-like grip. Yang Cheng said indifferently, "I'm talking nicely to you. If you want to be angry, then be angry. If you want to scold me, scold me. I'm a magnanimous person, but threatening me is wrong." After saying that, he turned his head and asked Anshin, who was in a daze, "My dear Anshin, do you want to strangle him to death?" Anshin's body quivered. She suddenly realized what was happening in front of her. She was surprised by Yang Cheng's unpredictable speed and strength. At the same time, she hurriedly shouted, Don't kill him, Yang Cheng, let him go. For the sake of my dear Anshin, I'll let you go." Yang Cheng said and let go of Lu Yun's hand. Lu Yun coughed violently and fell to the ground. His face was red. He retreated into the group of bodyguards in fear and gasped for breath. "Your life was saved by Anshin, so you better not make things difficult for her. Otherwise, I won't let go of your neck so easily next time. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first." After saying that, Yang Cheng winked at Anshin with a smile and turned to leave. Lu Yun and the group of bodyguards' expressions changed. In the end, they didn't have the courage to stop him. On the other hand, Anshin was very reluctant, but she knew that it wasn't the time to pester Yang Cheng. Moreover, Yang Cheng had done too much for her. She had to face everything on her own. Just like Yang Cheng said, she also had her dignity. Feeling grateful to Yang Cheng, Anshin watched him leave. Then, she tidied up her appearance and walked toward the Mercedes-Benz. "Anshin, where are you going?" Lu Yun asked in a deep voice. He wouldn't let this woman leave his sight again. Anshin smiled and couldn't be bothered to look at him. "Where else can I go?" "Home." After saying that, she took the initiative to get into the car. Many complicated emotions flashed across Lu Yun's gloomy face. In the end, he murmured in a voice that only he could hear, "What's mine, no one can take it away." Chapter 93. Since it was still a working day, Yang Cheng drove straight to Yulei International after leaving the police station. Although his plan to buy breakfast every day fell through, as an outstanding employee who loved his job and the company, Yang Cheng felt that he had to continue playing games until he got off work. The moment he entered the PR office, countless resentful gazes were directed at him, causing Yang Cheng to have goosebumps all over his body. "Good morning, ladies." Yang Cheng greeted them with a stiff smile, standing at the door like a machine lacking lubricant. "Humph, someone doesn't care about the lives of so many of us sisters, letting us starve so early in the morning." Zhang Kai pouted her red lips and complained unhappily. Yang Cheng was afraid that these women would take turns to bombard him, so he quickly said, I can explain. I ran into some trouble today. What kind of trouble? A pretty girl asked in disbelief. Yang Cheng had always been honest, so he said, I hooked up with a girl at a nightclub last night and got caught by the police after we slept together. I just got out of the police station early this morning. I didn't even have the time to eat breakfast. The group of PR ladies were speechless. He could even make up such a reason. Who would believe him? A few of the pretty girls teased, Stop bragging. You're such a pervert, but you don't have the guts to do it. You still managed to hook up with a girl to get a room with you. Don't tell me you're a dinosaur. It's just forgetting to buy breakfast once and being late. We know you're famous for not doing your job properly. We'll let you off, but you don't have to make up such a lousy reason. Yangji, why don't you hook up with me and see if I'll get a room with you and get caught by the police again? I've never been to the police station before. Fox, if you want to go to the police station, just go to a nightclub next time. Ha! The group of women chattered, but no one believed him. Yang Cheng was depressed. No one believed him even when he was telling the truth. What kind of world was this? After the small storm, when Yang Cheng sat down, Zhao Hongyan, who was typing at the side, looked at him with a faint smile. You really got caught and sent to the police station? Why would I make up such a technical lie for no reason? I even quarreled with the woman's family. Zhao Hongyan showed an expression of admiration. You're really unlucky. You were caught by the police having an affair. I've never seen such a loser like you. Tis, do you think it's that easy to cheat? Yang Cheng was unhappy. Why don't you try cheating next time? Just don't get caught by your husband. Zhao Hongyan blushed and rolled her eyes at Yang Cheng. What nonsense are you talking about? I'm a woman from a good family. I've devoted my life to the happiness of my family. I don't know who it was last time, but when I touched it, it was wet down there. Yang Cheng mumbled. Zhao Hongyan couldn't stand this kind of ambiguous provocation. She raised her hand and hit Yang Cheng's shoulder a few times. She said with a red face, Don't mention it again. Don't ever do that again. I treat you as an ordinary colleague. I don't have those dirty thoughts of yours. What dirty thoughts? Yang Cheng looked at the shy young woman in front of him with ridicule. What you're doing is exposing yourself. I haven't said anything yet. What are you thinking? Zhao Hongyan was so angry that her plump chest kept heaving up and down. She snorted and turned her head, ignoring Yang Cheng. At this moment, Lu Mingyu, who was wearing a white dress suit, walked over with a swaying posture. These days, she didn't have to deal with department head Ma's harassment, so the #1 female public relations officer of the public relations department looked much better. Her face was glowing red, and her delicate face was like a blooming tulip. Lu Mingyu held a steaming cup of coffee in her hand and leaned against Yang Cheng's desk. Because of the pressure, the curves of her plump buttocks were especially exaggerated. The tight-fitting uniform outlined a round texture. Yang Cheng, don't tease Hongyan. She's really worried about you. She saw that you didn't come to work this morning. She wanted to call you to ask what happened, but who knew that your phone was turned off? Zhao Hongyan felt a little embarrassed when her thoughts were exposed. Sister Mingyu, what are you talking about? I'm not worried about this heartless guy. He can come or not if he wants. Yang Cheng's heart was warm. It seemed that these women really cared about him. He smiled at Zhao Hongyan and said, What are you shy about? What's wrong with caring about a colleague? Who cares about you? Stop being so narcissistic. Zhao Hongyan pretended to be angry and glared at him. She turned around and continued to do other things. Yang Cheng looked at the quiet Lu Mingyu and asked, What about you? Are you worried about me? Me? Lu Mingyu's expression was a little unnatural when she was suddenly asked like this. What does it have to do with me? With your shameless look, it's others who will suffer. Nothing will happen to you. With that, Lu Mingyu quickly walked back. They all know how to pretend. Yang Cheng shook his head and smiled. He turned on his computer and began his life in the game. Lunch was still at Ulay International Staff Cafeteria. The three women were like a drama. After sharing some of the food with Yang Cheng, they basically watched Yang Cheng wolf down his food. They didn't eat much themselves. Most of the time, they talked about cosmetics and fashion. Women always had endless things to talk about, especially women who worked in fashion companies. At this time, Zhang Kai suddenly interrupted with a question. Hey, the Autumn Fashion Conference is almost here. Do you think the CEO will be able to come out of the hospital and host it? He should be able to. Zhao Hongyan thought for a moment. It's almost half a month. Didn't the CEO say he's going to recuperate? It should be over soon. If the CEO isn't around by then, this year's conference will definitely be missing a lot of important people. Lu Mingyu said worriedly. Suddenly, she saw Yang Cheng, who was sitting across the table, still engrossed in his food. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Yang Cheng, you're still a member of the company. Can't you care about the company's matters? What's the point of me caring? Yang Cheng thought to himself. He licked the rice at the corner of his mouth and smiled. I'm not a doctor. Even if I care about General Lin, he can't be discharged so early. You're so heartless. Zhang Kai stuck out her tongue cutely. Your wife is so pitiful to have a husband like you. Yeah, you still go to the nightclub after getting married. In the end, you're even caught by the police. You don't even work hard. I really don't know how such a silly woman could marry you. Zhao Hongyan said sarcastically. Yang Cheng smiled nonchalantly. He knew that they were just joking. Otherwise, they wouldn't be eating with him. In his heart, however, he was thinking that Lin Ruoshi would indeed be discharged next week. There were many things that he should talk to her about. Speaking of which, his husband was caught by the police for hooking up with another woman. His wife, Lin Ruoshi, didn't even send him a message. She only sent a lawyer to bring him out of the police station. To be able to look at her husband's affair so calmly, Lin Ruoshi was definitely an anomaly among all the women in the world. Yang Cheng couldn't be bothered to think about these useless things. He shook his head and intended to continue eating. However, from the corner of his eye, he saw his superior, Imo Chinni, who he hadn't seen for a few days, walking into the dining room. Beside her was Lin Ruoshi's secretary, Wu Yu. Behind the two women were a group of men and women who looked like elites. Imo Chinni was wearing a fashionable, slightly transparent blouse, a black jacket, and a pair of cowboy-style leather boots. She was wearing a pair of retro coffee-colored bell-bottom pants. Her elegant and plump figure exuded a bit of wild beauty, but it didn't lose its charm. As soon as she entered the dining room, she attracted many male employees to secretly stare at her. However, Imo Chinni's bright and pretty face looked a bit tired. Her eyebrows were slightly furrowed. As she chatted with Wu Yu, there seemed to be a cloud of worry that couldn't be dispelled. Department head Imo is really pitiful recently. She's busy with the public relations department and has to share the CEO's work, Zhang Kai said softly. She has meetings every day. We only come down to eat when it's almost time to finish eating. What can we do? General Lin Trust Department head Imo the most. Moreover, capable people do more work. Who asked department head Imo to double the profits of the public relations department for the past few years? I reckon that when General Lin comes back, department head Imo will definitely be promoted. The group of people on the board of directors will already be convinced by her, Zhao Hongyan said admiringly. After the two beautiful young women finished speaking, they suddenly turned their heads to look at Lu Mingyu, who was smiling without saying a word. Lu Mingyu looked at the two women strangely. Why are you staring at me like that? Zhang Kai giggled. Sister Mingyu, when department head Mo gets promoted to the position of vice CEO or CEO's assistant, won't the candidate for our public relations department head be yours? What nonsense are you talking about? Lu Mingyu reached out and pinched Zhang Kai's soft cheek. She said with a smile, you can't talk about this kind of thing. That's right. Zhao Hongyan also agreed with Zhang Kai's opinion. Sister Mingyu's performance has been number one in our department for the past few years. We can't let an outsider be the department head. We sisters all support you, Sister Mingyu. Looking at Lu Mingyu's happy and shy appearance, Yang Cheng couldn't help but say, you guys are acting like members of the board of directors. You can say whoever you want. Shut up. Eat. The three women said in unison. How are we going to eat if we shut up? Yang Cheng muttered and didn't bother to say anything more. At the same time, Imo Chinni, who had just walked past Yang Cheng and the others, suddenly had her phone vibrate. After she picked up the phone, her expression changed slightly. She gave a few simple replies, gave a few words to Wu Yu and the others, and planned to leave first. When she turned around, she happened to see Yang Cheng, who was trying hard to eat. Mo Qianni hesitated for a moment, then walked to Yang Cheng's side and said, Yang Cheng, come with me to a place to take care of something. Ah, but I'm eating. It's fine as long as you don't starve to death. This is an order. Mo Qianni glared at him. This guy was still as lazy as ever. Just looking at him made her angry. Yang Cheng was helpless. If it was purely a superior, it wouldn't have mattered. But after all, they had some friendship in private, so it wasn't good to refuse. He slowly stood up. All right then, but when I get hungry, you have to buy me food. Chapter 94. Every time he went out with Mo Qianni, they would always go to some weird places. The first time, they went to a gangster company. The second time, they went to a popular food stall. This was the third time they went out. Yang Cheng was already mentally prepared, but when they arrived at their destination, he was still stunned for a long time. Zhonan Engineering and Construction Company, Limited, this was a company, but the place they were was not where the company was located, but a construction site that was contracted by the company. Iron-brown steel bars, gray cement, and all kinds of rock fragments were piled up on the side. The air was filled with dust, and under the sunlight, it was a misty scene. Surrounding them were construction workers wearing yellow helmets. Many of them were bare-chested, revealing their bronze, skinny muscles. Their pants were soaked with sticky sweat, and their faces were covered in mud and dust. Even if they smiled at you, you would feel that they were crying. People often say that the sweat of farmers irrigated the crops, but wasn't it the sweat of construction workers that piled up the skyscrapers? Miss Mo, are you sure you didn't go to the wrong place? Yang Chun looked at Mo Qianni, who was dressed in beautiful attire, as she carefully walked on the bumpy stone path. He really doubted how long her high heels could last. Mo Qianni wiped the sweat on her forehead and said in a bad mood, I told you to follow me. Don't talk nonsense. Yang Cheng smiled at Shan Shan and did not take it to heart. Mo Qianni ignored him and continued to walk forward. She met a middle-aged man who looked like a supervisor. He was wearing the blue uniform of Zhongnan Company, and he was directing a few workers to move the cement. Brother, may I ask where the workshop of this construction site is? Mo Qianni asked politely. The supervisor looked at her in surprise. He wondered why such a beautiful girl would come to a dirty construction site and look for the company's office. He guessed that she might be a civil servant from a government department, so he greeted her with a smile and told Mo Qianni the location of the office. The so-called office was a temporary plywood house, but such a large construction company naturally had good facilities. Other than being a little empty, it was not much different from a real office. There was air conditioning and a TV. There was only a big wooden desk in the office. A middle-aged man with a big belly and wearing a gray suit of an inferior brand was holding the phone and shouting in a dialect. When he saw Mo Qianni and Yang Cheng enter the door, he was first stunned by Mo Qianni's charm. Then he looked at the two thoughtfully. After hanging up the phone, the fat man showed a hearty smile and reached out to Mo Qianni. What can I do for you, miss? Mo Qianni naturally ignored the man's outstretched hand and said indifferently, Where is Zhang Fuguwei? I'm here to take him back. Fatty wanted to shake hands with Zhang Fuguwei, but he was not embarrassed. When he heard the name, Zhang Fuguwei, his pair of mung bean eyes narrowed, almost invisible. You are Zhang Fuguwei's daughter? Mo Qianni frowned, but she still nodded. Yes. Yang Cheng, who was behind, looked at this scene curiously. He did not expect that Mo Qianni's father was here, and it seemed that something had happened. He remembered that a while ago, Mo Qianni told him that her father had died a long time ago. In other words, this Zhang Fuguwei was likely to be her stepfather. Yang Cheng did not speak and quietly watched the development of the situation. He leisurely lit a cigarette and silently smoked. Did you bring the money? Fatty seemed to have changed his face all of a sudden. He looked at Mo Qianni with a bit of arrogance, as if he had suddenly become a notch above others. Mo Qianni quietly took out a stack of red bills from her small leather bag. It looked like a lot and said, This is 5,000 Huaxia dollars. Let him go. 5,000? Fatty laughed out loud. 5,000 is the number just now. It has been a while since your gambling addict father called you. Now he owes more than 5,000. What? Mo Qianni's face became more and more ugly. She suppressed her anger and asked, "He lost again?" Fatty snorted a few times and smoked a cigarette. He pointed to the room next door. "Go in and see for yourself. See how much he lost." Mo Chinny turned around and left the office like the wind. She walked to the room next door and forcefully pushed the door open. The smell of cigarettes and alcohol rushed out. Mo Chinny suddenly choked on the disgusting smell and coughed twice. Then she saw the situation in the room. There were only a few tables and benches in this room. There were scattered poker cards, pai gow, and mahjong everywhere. The cement floor was filled with cigarette butts and empty beer bottles. Two shaking incandescent light bulbs were emitting a faint light. At this moment, in the room, there were 7 or 8 men dressed casually around the largest table. There was a person sitting at each end of the table. A man with a long face was wearing an unbuttoned white shirt. His hair was standing up, and he was smoking a cigarette. He had one foot on the bench and looked very relaxed. Opposite him, there was another figure trembling. He was wearing a yellow short-sleeved shirt. His face was covered in dirt. There were many wrinkles at the corners of his eyes and forehead. His whole face was so thin that the flesh on his cheeks was particularly protruding. He looked very depressed. When the people in the room saw the door being pushed open, they all turned to look. When they saw that it was a charming woman who opened the door, all of their eyes lit up. Only the middle-aged man with a stooped body and listless eyes showed a look of ecstasy when he saw Mo Chinny. It was as if he had instantly drilled out of the mud into the clouds. He rushed to Mo Chinny and grabbed Mo Chinny's shoulders with both hands. He shook Missouri Chinny and shouted, "Girl, give me money. Give me money. I want to turn the tables. Give me money." Mo Chinny's shoulders hurt from being grabbed, but she didn't break free. Her eyes were red as she smiled bitterly and said, "How much do you want?" "As much as you have. I want to turn the tables." The man shouted as if he had been injected with a stimulant. At this time, the other men also understood. The man with the hair, standing up, grinned and said, "Girl, you should be the daughter that Zhang Fuguei mentioned. Your father, Zhang Fuguei, still owes me 20,000 gambling debts. Help him pay it off before you gamble with me." Zhang Fuguei's face turned red. He turned around and shouted, "Don't be too happy, Dajuan. I'll gamble with you after I get the money. When the time comes, I'll make you owe me 20,000. 20,000. Mo Chinny's pretty face turned pale. She looked at Zhang Fuguei's crazy back and said, "It's only been half an hour, and you suddenly went from 5,000 to 20,000? Do you know what you're doing?" Zhang Fuguei turned around and saw that Mo Chinny's eyes were already misty with tears. He finally realized that something was wrong. He clenched his teeth and said, "I made a mistake just now. Don't worry about it. I'll win it all back later." "A mistake? How long has it been since you made a mistake? How many years has it been? How much money did I give you? Do you know that that money is enough to buy a house in Zhonghai?" Mo Chinny finally couldn't help but loudly scold him. Zhang Fuguei wanted to get angry, but when he thought about how he didn't have any money and still had to look up to his nominal daughter, he could only lower his voice and smile. "Girl, you can't say that. People always have bad luck. Don't cry. It's useless even if you cry. If you don't have money, you have to win it back. You told me that you came to Zhonghai to work. You said that you came to the construction site to be a cement worker, but you started gambling in less than a day." Mo Chinny screamed. Tears flowed out of her eyes, and she panted, "Money is earned, not won. How long will it take for you to understand?" Zhang Fuguei didn't know what to say and could only roar, "Don't be so long-winded. Take out the money." "Not giving. If I give it to you, you go and gamble. Do as you see fit." Mo Chinny's anger rose. She struggled to shake off Zhang Fuguei and was about to turn around and leave. Zhang Fuguei was anxious. He fiercely grabbed Mo Chinny's hand and began to snatch the purse in Mo Chinny's hand. He crazily shouted, "Give it to me. You. Let go." Mo Chinny was a woman after all. How could she compete with a man's strength? The purse in her hand was about to be snatched away inch by inch. When the men in the room saw this scene, they all laughed and shouted in schadenfreude. "Zhang Fuguei, you really can't do it. Your daughter doesn't listen to you. Your daughter is too lazy to save you. You old gambler deserves it. Ha! Zhang Fugui's anger rose. He lost money and lost face. His head suddenly turned hot. He raised his hand and was about to slap Mo Qianni. Mo Qianni also realized that Zhang Fugui wanted to hit her, but she couldn't let go of the purse. She could only tilt her head to avoid being hit as much as possible. She closed her eyes in shock, and her face was filled with pain and sorrow. At this moment, before Zhang Fugui's hand could fall, it was grabbed by another hand in midair, making it difficult for him to move an inch. Hey, it's not like your daughter took your money. Why are you hitting your daughter? Yang Cheng stood in front of Mo Qianni and suddenly stopped Zhang Fugui's movements. Zhang Fugui was stunned. He panted heavily and asked, "Who are you?" "It doesn't matter who I am. What's important is that you can't hit her and you can't steal her money." Yang Cheng said, "This is my family's business. I want to take money from my daughter. What does it have to do with you? Why can't I hit my daughter?" Zhang Fugui shouted arrogantly, "If you're so powerful, why don't you fight with that group of people? And as far as I know, Mo Qianni isn't your biological daughter. You're just a nominal daughter. Don't think too highly of yourself." After Yang Cheng said this coldly, he exerted force on Zhang Fugui's hand, causing Zhang Fugui to take a few steps back. Mo Qianni, who was prepared to receive a beating, raised her head and saw that it was Yang Chun who was blocking in front of her. Seeing his not-so-wide back made her heave a sigh of relief, and a trace of warmth flowed through her heart. However, when she thought about how this gambling-addicted stepfather was so rude to his daughter who came to save him, and even wanted to hit her, Mo Qianni felt sad. Her heart felt like it was being gnawed by countless insects. Countless grievances accumulated in the past gushed out, and she couldn't help but sob. Yang Cheng looked at the woman who was already sobbing and only knew how to wipe her tears. He finally understood why Mo Qianni would drag him here. This kind of situation, no woman would dare to come alone. Chapter 95. The faces of the men in the room turned ugly. Dajuan, who was gambling with Zhang Fugui, stood up. He was more than 8 meters tall, and his open collar revealed his strong chest muscles. He looked at Yang Cheng and narrowed his eyes into a line. "Kid, open your claws and see clearly whose territory this is. It's only right for a father to hit his daughter. Don't be a busybody." Zhang Fugui was pushed away by Yang Cheng and became angry. He pointed at Yang Cheng and Mo Qianni and shouted, "Good, little bitch, so you found a man to help you. Do you want me, your father, to be killed after only a few days in Zhonghai, so that you can live a comfortable life alone in the future?" Seeing that Mo Qianni didn't pay, Zhang Fugui was so angry that he trembled. He opened his mouth and began to curse. Mo Qianni looked at him with tears in her eyes. She was full of despair and anger. She sneered and said, "Whatever you say, you have to pay the money you owe. Yang Cheng, let's go." After saying that, Mo Qianni grabbed Yang Cheng's hand and planned to leave. Yang Cheng naturally didn't care. This Zhang Fugui really couldn't be flattered. If he wasn't stupid, then he was crazy. The words incurable were the most suitable to describe him. If he wasn't Mo Qianni's stepfather, he should have broken one of his arms when he was thrown. However, the men in the room obviously wouldn't let the two leave so easily. Dajuan snorted coldly. "If you don't leave the money, don't even think about leaving." A few construction workers with evil smiles rushed out of the door and blocked the way of Yang Cheng and Mo Qianni. They also looked at Mo Qianni's exposed fragrant and tender skin with greedy eyes. Yang Cheng had learned something new. How could there be people forcing people to stay in broad daylight? He couldn't help but smile and say to Mo Qianni, "Why is it like shooting a movie?" Mo Qianni was not in the mood to joke with him. She suppressed the panic in her heart, wiped her tears, and said solemnly, "What do you want? Believe it or not, I will call the police. You guys are gathering people to gamble. All of them will be detained and fined." The men at the scene burst into laughter, as if they had seen the funniest joke. Dajuan walked forward with an arrogant look on his face and said with a sinister smile, "Little girl, let me tell you, the people who owed me money in the construction site all said the same thing. They all said that they would call the police and make us go to jail. But do you know what happened to them? What do you think? Mo Chinny stared at him fearlessly. Dajuan sneered. In this world, the fist is the hard truth. Wait until I beat him up so badly that even his parents can't recognize him. What's there to call the police? What's the law? It's all F asterisk king bullsh asterisk T. In the end, they still have to obediently give me the money. Dajuan looked up and down at Mo Chinny and said, but today's situation is a bit special. I don't like to hit women. If this beautiful lady is willing to accompany us brothers to have some fun, then we can talk about the money, and we'll let you guys go later. The meaning in his words was very clear: to return the money with meat. A few men who already had ulterior motives looked at Mo Chinny with evil intentions, as if they were already waiting for a good meal. Zhang Fugue, who was nervous at the side, had been afraid of being beaten up. At this time, when he heard that there was hope for the money, he immediately became spirited and shouted at Mo Chinny, "Little bitch! Brother Dajuan already said it. What are you still standing there for? What the F asterisk CK does it have to do with you?" Dajuan stepped forward and gave Zhang Fugue a slap. Do I look like someone who would force a woman? Besides, how can $20,000 be worth as much as this pretty girl? When Mo Chinny heard that Zhang Fugue actually wanted her to agree to Dajuan's request, she almost fainted from anger, but the tears in her eyes seemed to have dried up. At this moment, there was only unyielding and anger. She sneered and said, "Stop dreaming. You can't threaten me. If you know what's good for you, quickly let us go, or else I'll really call the police." Yang Chung somewhat admired Mo Chinny's performance. She was indeed a strong woman. Although her emotions were out of control, she quickly straightened her back like an iron lady. "I said that women are stupid. Do you think we're lying?" Dajuan scratched his ear and said disdainfully, "To tell you the truth, the police station chief in this area is friends with my brother-in-law. Even if you call the police, nothing will happen. You know my brother-in-law, right? He's the boss next door. He's keeping an eye on me. My money is his money. Do you think you can leave so easily?" Yang Chung suddenly realized that the fat man was Dajuan's brother-in-law. No wonder he would let Dajuan gamble in the office next door. They were working together to cheat money from the workers. Mo Chinny didn't intend to stay any longer and said, "Yang Chung, let's go. Don't worry about them." Just as the two were about to move, a few men immediately blocked the way and stared at the two fiercely. "Take them in." Dajuan didn't talk nonsense and decided to use force. When Zhang Fugue saw a group of people about to make a move, he quickly cried and shouted, "Brother Dajuan, they are not willing to give you money. It has nothing to do with me. Get in." Dajuan angrily kicked Zhang Fugue's butt, and Zhang Fugue tumbled back into the door. A few men came forward and wanted to grab Yang Chung and Mo Chinny separately and drag them into the room. But Yang Chung wouldn't let them do as they wished. He protected Mo Chinny, who was a little hesitant by his side. He lifted his leg and kicked a few people around him. The few people who were just about to get close to Yang Chung didn't have the time to be ruthless. They were suddenly kicked out by the foot. Their sternum seemed to be broken. Fortunately, their physical fitness was good, so they didn't spit out a mouthful of blood. Yang Chung saw that Dajuan, the leader, was in a daze. He sneered and went forward to grab his hair. He didn't give Dajuan a chance to resist at all. He pulled hard and threw Dajuan into the room. He even pulled out a lot of his hair. Dajuan was dizzy from the fall. He always felt that he was strong and wasn't afraid of anyone. He didn't expect that he wouldn't be able to last half a move in front of this ordinary-looking man. He didn't even have time to react before he was thrown to the ground. It was so painful that it felt like a layer of skin had been peeled off. Dajuan touched his head. A large piece of hair had been pulled out, and there was blood flowing everywhere. Half of his hand was red, and he was scared silly. In an instant, the situation was one-sided. Yang Chung was like a sheep being herded into a pen. With a slap and a kick, he beat up a few arrogant men until they cried for their parents. Zhang Fugue, who was full of despair and fear, saw this scene. His eyes revealed a bit of surprise. He hurriedly endured the pain in his butt and ran to Yang Cheng's side. He smiled and said, "So this little brother is an expert. Hee, help me beat them up. Who told them to hit me just now?" "Huh." Yang Cheng indifferently glanced at him and lifted his leg to kick his butt again. "Io." Zhang Fugui fell face first into the room again. "You, why did you kick me? I'm Nizi's father." Zhang Fugui shouted. "I don't have a father like you." Without waiting for Yang Cheng to speak, Emo Chini said coldly, You. Zhang Fugui wanted to curse, but when he saw Yang Cheng's cold gaze, he swallowed all of it. He mumbled and didn't dare to open his mouth. Emo Chini was still in shock, but she found that the situation was already under Yang Cheng's control. While she was surprised at Yang Cheng's strength, she was also glad that she thought about it and asked Yang Cheng to accompany her. At first, she just felt that it wasn't appropriate for her to come alone in a construction site full of men. She didn't expect that bringing Yang Cheng would be such a big help. Otherwise, she was afraid of the consequences. "What's going on?" A voice came from behind. It was the fat supervisor who had just returned from a walk. He was Dajuan's brother-in-law. When he saw the mess of fighting, he exclaimed. When Dajuan saw the fatty coming, it was as if he had found his savior. He didn't care about the bleeding on his head and hurriedly cried, "Brother-in-law, brother-in-law, you're here." They didn't pay, and they even beat people. The fatty's face immediately darkened. His fierce-looking face trembled as he said, "What are you guys doing? There are so many people, and you can't even handle a man and a woman? This kid knows some martial arts. Hey, it hurts." A man who fell to the ground cried out in pain. When the fatty saw the miserable state of the few people, he was also a little afraid. However, he knew that he couldn't retreat at this time, so he pretended to be calm and said, "Kid, so what if you can fight? This is a society ruled by law. If you hit people, you'll go to jail. Do you believe that I won't call the police to arrest you right now?" "Jail?" Yang Cheng sneered and said, "You guys gathered to gamble like this, and even colluded to cheat the workers of their money. If this matter is exposed, it won't be as simple as a few days in jail, right?" When the fatty was mentioned, his face turned red. "Don't make irresponsible remarks. This is what Zhang Fugui wanted to bet on. What does it have to do with us?" "Really? It has nothing to do with you?" Yang Cheng smiled evilly and slowly walked forward. He came in front of the fatty and said, "Since you said it has nothing to do with you, then we'll make it your business. How about it?" "What? What do you mean?" The fatty was a little stunned. Yang Cheng suddenly grabbed the fatty's neck. Without waiting for the fatty to react, he dragged the fatty's fat body into the room like a dead dog. The nearly 200 pounds weight seemed insignificant in his hands. After putting the fatty into the room, Yang Cheng turned his head and smiled at Emo Chini. "Go to the office next door and get a few pieces of paper and pens. I need to use them." Emo Chini found that things were not within her expectations. Everything happened too suddenly. But at this moment, she had no choice but to trust Yang Cheng's words. She looked at Yang Cheng deeply and nodded. Soon, Emo Chini brought paper and a few ballpoint pens from the office next door. After handing them to Yang Cheng, she hesitated to ask something, but she didn't know how to start. Yang Cheng understood what she meant and smiled in relief. "Don't worry, no one will die." The people in the room had been frightened by Yang Cheng to the point that they didn't dare to make sound. They were afraid of being beaten a few more times. After all, they were not revolutionary martyrs. They knew that they couldn't win, but they still rushed forward. They just wanted to make some money. If they could avoid being beaten, of course, they wouldn't ask for it. After Yang Cheng let Emo Chini leave, he closed the door and locked it again. Then, he showed a harmless and gentle smile to the group of frightened men. Chapter 96. By the time they left the Zhong Nan Company's construction site, an hour had passed. After coming out of the room, the papers in Yang Cheng's hands were rolled up and held tightly in his hands. His face was calm, and he didn't say anything, which made Emo Chini depressed. Back in the car, Yang Cheng still didn't say anything. Emo Chini finally couldn't help but ask, "What's that in your hands? You obviously wanted to ask me, but you waited for so long. Seeing that I didn't take the initiative to tell you, you couldn't help but ask." Miss Mo Chinny, is this the so-called modesty? Yang Chung said teasingly. Mo Chinny's pretty face blushed when her thoughts were exposed. She rolled her eyes at him charmingly and snatched the papers from Yang Cheng's hands to read them carefully. After reading a few pages, Mo Chinny's watery eyes widened, and she couldn't say a word. She looked at Yang Chung strangely and said, I suddenly feel sad for them. How much threat did they have to suffer to write such a suicidal confession? That's right. The papers in Yang Cheng's hands were densely filled with the confessions of the men about gambling, fighting, coercion, swindling, and a series of crimes. Whether it was true or not, they were all written in their own handwriting. Moreover, there were signatures and fingerprints. The fingerprints were even made with blood. If these things were handed over to the police and a lawyer casually sued them, these guys would at least have to sit in jail for 2 to 3 years, not to mention the fines. Yang Chung pointed at one of the small slips and said, This is the IOU that Dajuan owes you. If you need it, you can ask him and his brother-in-law to repay the debt of 100,000. Of course, if you're too lazy to deal with them, you can also throw it into the rubbish bin. Mo Chinny took a look. It was indeed in a standard format, and there was even a signed IOU. If this thing was put in court, it could also be used as effective evidence. Originally, she owed someone a gambling debt, but now she had become the creditor for no reason. Don't tell me you're using torture to extort a confession, like on TV? Mo Chinny asked suspiciously. His mind was filled with bloody and terrifying images, and he shivered. Yang Chung shook his head and said seriously, Do I look like that kind of person? I only talk to them about their future lives. Future life? Yes, I asked them, Do you still want to continue the family line? Or are you planning to end your family line? After a long time, Mo Chinny stuffed the papers that were related to the fate of the group of people into the car storage box. After starting the car and driving out of the construction site, she sighed and said in a clear voice, Although I don't know how you did it, I know that you did it. But I have to say thank you. You've done me another big favor. Since those people attacked me, it's not just to help you. I won't let them have a good time either. Yang Chung thought for a moment and said hesitantly, That stepfather of yours, I'll ask him to scram back. Is that okay? It's okay. I've rented a house for him nearby. Let him be. Mo Chinny frowned. It was obvious that Zhang Fugue made her very sad. She pondered for a moment and said, I don't want to talk about that person. Yang Chung, can you accompany me to another place? I want to thank you properly. You're not going to treat me to a food stall again, are you? Yang Chung curled his lips. The food there is quite spicy. My lips were a little swollen last time. Mo Chinny seemed to be in a good mood. She once again showed her unique intellectual face and looked at Yang Chung with a smile. It's tea time now. Forget about eating. I'll take you to a place you'll definitely like. Yang Chung was once again sure that the places he went with Mo Chinny must be some very inexplicable places. More than half an hour later, Mo Chinny took Yang Chung to a forest park in the eastern coastal suburbs of Zhonghai. The red Audi slowly drove through the woods along 2 small roads filled with green mountains. The surrounding woods were lush and green. The mountains that were gradually entering autumn appeared yellow and green. From time to time, flocks of birds flew over the woods. The fallen leaves on the side of the road were scattered as the car drove past. After driving for more than 10 minutes, Yang Chun finally saw that the hillside was actually a large sports field. To be more precise, it was a multi-purpose sports center where rich people who had nothing better to do usually came here to play sports. Looking from afar, in addition to a variety of open-air ball courts, there was even a car track. The place you said I'll definitely like is the sports field? Yang Cheng asked with a bitter face. Mo Chinny nodded. Whenever I'm in a bad mood, I'll often come here to exercise. After exercising, I'll be sweaty and it'll seem like nothing matters. But I don't like to exercise. You're so good at fighting. Why don't you like to exercise? Mo Chinny asked puzzledly. Fighting is achieved by killing people. Exercising is a waste of energy. Yang Cheng said in his heart, but he just stubbornly said, I'm a lazy person. Even if I play games, I won't play sports. Then you can sit on the sidelines and watch the beauties exercise. I know you'll like it. There are a lot of beauties here. Yang Cheng was a little excited. Mo Chinny glanced at him disdainfully. Humph, you're already married and still so lecherous. Let me tell you, this Maple Forest Sports and Leisure Center has been open for at least 20 years. Most of the high-level white-collar workers and rich ladies in Shanghai come here to exercise. Rather than saying it's a sports field, it's better to say it's the most comprehensive high-end club. Of course, there are a lot of beauties here. Although I'm not that obsessed with appearances for the sake of Miss Mo's health, let's go in quickly, Yang Chung said with a sincere face. Just as Mo Chinny said, after entering the Maple Forest Leisure Center, there was an endless stream of women walking back and forth. Moreover, most of them were wearing sports hot pants, bright colors, and short to the bottom of their thighs. Those pairs of white and slender thighs swaying in front of their eyes were a good enjoyment for any man. Because of the exercise, many of the girls were slightly sweaty, and the scent of their body fragrance and perfume was particularly obvious. As long as one walked by, one could smell all kinds of fragrance. Mo Chinny took the lead and walked in front. When she turned back and saw Yang Cheng's unscrupulous eyes, she felt a little uncomfortable in her heart. Hey, even if you want to look, you don't have to be so exaggerated, okay? What if they have a boyfriend here and cause a dispute? Then it'll be troublesome. What dispute can this cause? Yang Cheng smiled indifferently. At worst, I'll just shamelessly deny it. Isn't it over? Mo Chinny rolled her eyes and was too lazy to care about this rascal. They walked all the way to the main hall of the Maple Forest Leisure Center. The hall was made of transparent tempered glass, and the design looked particularly bright and fashionable. The silver modern three-dimensional frame and the perfect bonsai plants made the whole hall comfortable and spacious, filled with fresh air. The waiters who were walking back and forth were all young ladies or young men with bright smiles on their faces. They all wore T-shirts with maple leaf insignia on them and revealed warm smiles when they saw Mo Chinny and Yang Chen. They walked to an aisle in the hall, after which they could enter the interior of the leisure center to officially participate in the activities. A girl with a sweet smile asked Mo Chinny for a pass. Mo Chinny took out a dark red magnetic card from her bag and handed it to the girl. At the same time, she pointed to Yang Cheng behind her. This is my assistant. Can I bring him in? Miss, your card is a VIP card. You have the right to bring a friend in, the girl replied patiently. Yang Cheng touched his nose and followed Mo Chinny in. He smiled and said, "Why do I feel like a pretty boy being supported by a rich woman? Come on, your face isn't white at all." Mo Chinny sneered. Yang Cheng was unhappy. He touched his handsome face and thought to himself, this girl is being naughty again. She forgot that I'm her benefactor so quickly. Miss Mo, you haven't been here for a while. She had only taken a few steps when a familiar, mature, and charming voice came from the side, expressing a sincere welcome to Mo Chinny. Mo Chinny turned her head and showed a happy but reserved smile to the person who came. It was unknown whether it was a skillful smile or this woman's natural charm. As for Yang Cheng, he just looked back and was stunned for a moment. How could it be her? Tang Wan, who was dressed casually, also noticed that it was Yang Cheng who came in with her. Seeing Yang Cheng's stunned expression, she smiled a bit playfully and greeted, "Mr. Yang, we meet again." Yang Cheng saw Tang Wan's sudden realization and felt very embarrassed. He knew what Tang Wan was thinking. The first time they met, he was looking for her to solve the loneliness in the middle of the night, but she ignored him. The second time was in Li Jingjing's office with the pure and lovely teacher Li. But a few days later, he appeared together with the intellectual and charming Mo Chinny in this leisure center. Any woman would think of other things, let alone a woman like Tang Wan, who was obviously a smart woman. "President Tang, do you know Yang Cheng?" Mo Chinny asked curiously. In her eyes, it was incredible that Yang Cheng would know this woman who had a high status in Zhonghai's upper class. Tang Wan smiled gently and said, "We met twice. This is the third time, but it seems that Mr. Yang and I are very fated." Yang Cheng smiled awkwardly to cover up. "It is indeed a coincidence that we can meet in such a remote place." Mo Chinny couldn't help but ridicule. "What coincidence is there? President Tang, is the owner of Maple Forest Leisure Center. This is her territory. What coincidence is there? Yang Chung was suddenly speechless. No wonder this woman could drive a limited edition Land Rover. She was really rich. So he said with a bit of bitterness, "I am not ignorant." This doormat expression made the two beauties chuckle, and the atmosphere was particularly harmonious. Tang Wan seemed to think of something. Her eyes sparkled, and she said cordially, "What are the two of you doing here? Fitness? Swimming? Do you like yoga or race cars?" "I haven't thought about it yet. Actually, I am here to relax." "President Tang, do you have any good recommendations?" Mo Chinny asked. Tang Wan nodded. "I'm going to watch a tennis match. The people playing are all regulars here and are VIPs of Maple Forest like Miss Mo. I'm sure I'll be able to meet a lot of acquaintances and have some fun together. Would the two of you be willing to come?" Yang Chan was about to refuse. He wasn't a VIP. How could he have acquaintances? However, Mo Chinny pulled his hand and said with a smile, "Since there's such a good thing, and it's an invitation from Boss Tang, of course I have to go take a look. Let's go together." Chapter 97. With no other choice, Yang Chang was dragged towards the tennis court. With an innocent face, he asked Mo Chinny, "If you want to go, then go. I'll go somewhere else." "I'm not a VIP. I won't meddle." Mo Chinny glared at him and whispered, "Don't think I don't know what you're thinking. You want to go to the pool to look at women, right? Let me tell you, the VIPs here are almost all famous business and political figures in Zhonghai. Since you're Lay International's PR, you have to interact with these people. Every level of relationship is the key to success. Remember the leader's advice. I'm just here to buy breakfast. My previous job was selling mutton skewers. I feel like those things are too far away from me." "Not far. The tennis court is right in front." Maple Forest Leisure Center's extravagance was really big. Once he entered the tennis court, Yang Chung felt like he was in a soccer field. This made him feel like he was in a developed country that loved tennis. After all, in Huaxia, where tennis wasn't developed, to be able to use such a big court to play tennis was really special. If it was ping pong, he could still accept it. On the tennis court, which was made of red and green plastic, there were already many people wearing tennis sportswear and swinging their rackets. Among them, there was no lack of dazzling ladies, whose plump chests trembled as they ran was very eye-catching. The men on the side were shouting and cheering. He didn't know what ball they were looking at. He followed Tang, went all the way to the southeasternmost corner of the stadium. The facilities there were relatively more luxurious. In addition to the seats on the side of the stadium, there were also many waitresses serving tea and drinks. The excellent sound system played a melody rich with the rhythm of the blues. At this time, there were already many men and women chatting and laughing in the court. Only two young girls were playing. To a tennis layman like Yang Chung, these two girls' posture was very beautiful and their bodies were very attractive. However, their eyesight wasn't very good. They couldn't even catch such a slow ball. Basically, you serve, I serve, no one receives the ball. "Boss Tang, you're finally here. We've been waiting for you for a long time." A handsome man said with a smile. "I didn't expect Director Su to also come. What a rare guest." Tang Wan generously shook hands with the man. "If President Tang doesn't come, there's no point in us fighting." Another middle-aged man with a protruding belly laughed. Tang Wan smiled warmly and said, "Mr. Xiao, you must be joking. Today, everyone is gathering together to play tennis. It's not a big deal if Tang Wan is absent." "You can't say that. If the master doesn't come, we don't have a backbone." A beautiful woman flattered. A group of rich people greeted each other warmly, but none of their words were true. Mo Chinny and Yang Chung, who appeared with Tang Wan, naturally attracted attention. Some of them immediately recognized Mo Chinny, who was quite famous in the business world, and immediately greeted her with a smile. "I didn't expect that Miss Mo would also come. Long time no see. Miss Mo is still as radiant and beautiful as ever." A middle-aged man who boasted of his elegant appearance came forward and praised Mo Chinny, looking very sincere. Mo Chinny smiled calmly and said, "Mr. Huang, you're too polite. I happened to meet President Tang, who said that there was a ball game here. Chinny just came to join in the fun." Then, many people came forward to chat with Mo Chinny. The atmosphere was very good, but almost all of them naturally put Yang Chung aside, neither repelling nor approaching him. These business and political elites had relatively sharp eyes. They could easily see that Yang Cheng's real identity was definitely not a very important person. From the fact that Yang Chung followed Mo Qianyi, they could draw a lot of conclusions. Most of them directly guessed that Yang Chung was Mo Qianyi's assistant or something like that, and there might be a hidden relationship between them. This kind of thing was not uncommon in this circle. Therefore, Yang Chung very casually sat to the side and watched the two women chat with a group of people he didn't know. "Miss Mo, I heard that your company's General Lin was a little unwell a few days ago and was admitted to the hospital. Is that true?" While chatting, someone finally asked about Lin Ruoshi. Mo Qianyi nodded with a slightly sad expression. "Yes, Chief Zhao, but our president should be able to be discharged next week. His body has already recovered to a healthy state." Chief Zhao was full of joy and said, "That's good. Our government leaders actually highly praised your company's performance these years. General Lin is even more outstanding. At such a young age, she was able to lead Yulei International to achieve such impressive results. She is even more daring than the old president. She really is an indispensable young pillar of Zhonghai's Chamber of Commerce. I still remember when the top 10 entrepreneurs of Zhonghai were awarded a year ago. General Lin's graceful bearing was really unforgettable." Speaking of Lin Ruoshi, the group of people flattered her again. A few young and promising men even had a bit of yearning for her. Yang Chung secretly smiled bitterly. It seems that Lin Ruoshi's cold personality was something that couldn't be helped. If she was just a little more enthusiastic, the men who had thoughts about her would indeed break through the doorstep. Seeing that the conversation was almost over, Tang Wan suggested, "Everyone is here to play tennis today. I think we should put business matters aside for now. Who wants to warm up first?" "Haha, President Tang is right. Then I, old Liu, will go up first. Who want to spar with me?" A cheerful middle-aged president laughed as he picked up the tennis racket and asked. "Me?" A slightly plump woman who seemed to have maintained herself well smiled as she picked up the racket. "Big brother Liu, please go easy on me. I just gave birth a few months ago. My body hasn't recovered yet." Of course. Yang Qing looked at the young woman swaying her fat, but as she chatted and laughed with a man while playing tennis. He secretly laughed in his heart. Was this a ball game or a bubble game? Not long after the tennis warm-up match began, another group of people walked over from the side of the court. The person in the lead was a man wearing sunglasses and a flirtatious pink tennis outfit. His face was fair and clean. He wasn't tall, but his whole body exuded a hint of gentleness that ordinary men didn't have, making him look a bit feminine and charming. If it wasn't for the characteristic of his Adam's apple, he could completely pass off as a young girl dressed in androgynous clothing. Behind the man were 2 or 3 attendants with sports equipment on their backs. In addition, there were 4 bodyguards in suits and leather shoes. Even though it was under the sun, they were still dressed neatly and meticulously. Their eyes were sharp as they looked around. Obviously, they were of high quality. The appearance of this group of people immediately attracted the attention of others present. However, their expressions were a little different from the enthusiasm when they saw Tang Wan coming over. Although they were smiling, there was a hint of fear in their eyes when they looked at those people. "I never thought that young Master Zhou would also come. It's truly an honor to have you here." Tang Wan was the first to go up and welcome them as the host. The young man, surnamed Zhou, gently smiled as he took off his sunglasses, revealing a pair of charming, single-eyelid eyes. He lightly shook hands with Tang Wan and immediately let go. In a refined manner, he said, "Mr. Tang, you must be joking. I, Zhou Dongsheng, was only able to get to know everyone here because of my father. It's fine as long as you don't blame me for disturbing you." Hearing the name Zhou Dongsheng, Yang Chung knitted his brows as he pulled Mo Qianyi's arm and whispered, "This Zhou Dongsheng is the Dongxing Group's Zhou Dongsheng?" Mo Qianyi looked at Yang Chung with a strange expression and smiled. "I couldn't tell that you know about the Dongxing Group. Looks like you're not completely ignorant. That's right, he's Zhou Guanyin's only son, the young master of the Dongxing Group. I advise you to stay far away from him, or else it'll be dangerous." "Dangerous?" He looks quite polite. It was also Yang Cheng's first time seeing a living Zhou Dongsheng. He never thought that the son of the Zhou family's father and son, one of Qiang Wei's potential enemies, would be such a delicate young man. Moreover, from his polite appearance, he really didn't look like he came from the underworld. Mo Chinny's expression was a bit strange as she whispered in Yang Cheng's ear, "The danger I'm talking about is because he doesn't like women." He doesn't like women. Then what is he like? That's right, man. Yang Cheng's whole body quivered. No wonder he didn't want to touch a mature woman like Tang Wan. It wasn't because he was polite, but because he didn't like to come into contact with women. Seeing that Yang Cheng seemed to have eaten rat poison, Mo Chinny giggled and whispered, "What are you afraid of? With your appearance, he won't even look at you." Yang Cheng wasn't listening, because Yang Cheng suddenly remembered that when he saved Chen Bo a while ago, Chen Bo said that there was a boss with the surname Zhou who wanted him to receive customer. A person with the surname Zhou who could make a small underworld leader like Guo Ziheng go all out to capture people. It seemed like it was this Zhou Dongsheng. Thinking about it this way, a lot of things made sense. A few days ago, he was chased by a few strangers in a black Honda. He had been wondering who sent them, and it seemed like it had something to do with Zhou Dongsheng. After all, he told Guo Ziheng to go back and tell the boss to look for him if there was anything. Sure enough, after Zhou Dongsheng said a few words to a group of business and political people, he seemed to casually look over at Yang Cheng and even gave Yang Cheng a charming smile. Yang Cheng thought that was it. But after Zhou Dongsheng said a few words to a few big shots, he walked over to Yang Cheng's side under everyone's astonished gazes, with a strong smell of female perfume, and sat down. "Mister, do you mind if I sit here?" Zhou Dongsheng's face was a bit like some male celebrities in Korea, with thin lips and powdered face. At this moment, his skin was especially delicate. Although Yang Cheng had seen a lot of these types of men abroad, this was the first time he was this close. He was a bit reserved and forced a smile. "You've already sat down. Why are you asking me?" "Sitting down is my right. I'm asking you to know your opinion." "Then can I not let you sit here?" "No," Zhou Dongsheng said without a trace of politeness. Seeing the two of them talking as if they were strangers yet familiar with each other, some of the people around them who knew what was going on all revealed strange smiles. They naturally thought that Zhou Dongsheng, who was fond of Long Yang, had already taken a fancy to the male secretary that Mo Chinny had brought. Mo Chinny also opened her small mouth, shocked speechless. She just said that Zhou Dongsheng wouldn't be interested in Yang Cheng, but she didn't expect that nothing she said would work. Seeing Yang Cheng's embarrassed face, Mo Chinny couldn't help but almost laugh out loud. The two of them didn't talk in a low voice, and many people around them heard. At this time, Zhou Dongsheng politely asked, "I don't know how to address this, mister. I'm Zhou Dongsheng, Dongxing Group's vice president." Pretending not to know, Yang Cheng felt a burst of discomfort in his heart, curled his lips, and said, "My surname is Yang. First name Shi Jiao. Yang Shi Jiao. Yulei International's PR department is the #1 male PR. By the way, there are a total of 2 male PR candidates." Chapter 98. No matter how calm this group of big company executives and government officials were, they couldn't help but laugh when they heard the name Yang Shijio. The influence of the movie East Becomes West was not bad, so the group of people quickly understood the meaning of Yang Cheng's words. But after laughing, they suddenly felt that something was wrong. The person they were facing was the young master of Dongxing, Zhou Dongsheng, the little emperor of Zhonghai East's underground world. This kid dared to make fun of him. Did one die? But Zhou Dongxing's reaction was surprisingly not angry. Instead, he pursed his lips and said, "Mr. Yang really knows how to joke, but I like humorous men." His voice was soft and seemed to have a bit of shyness and joy. Yang Cheng only felt goosebumps all over his body. He took out a cigarette from his pants pocket and lit it up. After puffing out a mouthful of white smoke, he calmed down and said, "I don't like being liked by men. You don't like being liked, but that doesn't mean I can't like you," Zhou Dongsheng said in a tongue twister. Yang Cheng held the cigarette in one hand and scratched his head. He wasn't afraid of the cigarette burning his hair. This soft and sticky young master of Dongxing in front of him was more troublesome than he had imagined. If it was the fierce and strong type, Yang Cheng wouldn't be afraid. But this guy was like a cotton ball. He couldn't use it even if he had the strength. The surrounding guests had already begun their own activities. There were also a few teams on the tennis court that had begun to slowly hit the ball back and forth. The warm sunlight shone on the basketball court. Yang Chen stretched his body and didn't speak anymore. Zhou Dongsheng stared at Yang Cheng's frowning appearance as he smoked. After a while, he continued to laugh and said, "I know Mr. Yang may have some misunderstandings about me, but I really want to be friends with Mr. Yang. I don't know if there's a chance." "Friends?" Yang Cheng said vaguely. "The way you make friends is by sending a car to track." Zhou Dongsheng didn't deny it. He nodded frankly and said, "Yes, but that time was just an accident. I didn't think Mr. Yang would use such a thunderous method, but I can guarantee that I won't pursue it. In fact, the order I gave them was just to investigate Mr. Yang's surroundings." "I don't like it when people investigate me," Yang Cheng said lightly. Zhou Dongsheng stared back fearlessly. "I promise I won't do it again, Mr. Yang Cheng. And as a man who seems to me to be broad-minded, I think you can forgive me for my reckless action." Yang Cheng couldn't say anything harsh since he was already being used with honorifics. He could only nod indifferently. "Forget it. I'm too lazy to meddle." "Then, as a friend, can you play tennis with me?" Zhou Dongsheng suddenly asked. "I've never fought before. It doesn't matter. What's important is the friendly atmosphere, not the content of the score." Zhou Dongsheng's words were irrefutable, and they felt even more helpless for him taking the initiative to express goodwill. Yang Cheng sighed and took the lead to stand up. He walked to Tang Wan and said, "President Tang, can I borrow a racket?" Tang Wan had been paying attention to the conversation between Yang Cheng and Zhou Dongsheng. Although she couldn't hear it clearly, she thought that the two might have contacted each other before. At this moment, she didn't say much. She nodded and signaled a waiter to bring a standard racket to Yang Cheng. Zhou Dongsheng's follower also immediately took out a pink racket from his sports bag. It was the same color as his clothes. This strange color choice didn't attract much attention, because in this circle, Zhou Dongsheng liked men. It wasn't a secret that he liked to feminize himself. After seeing it many times, it was understandable. When Yang Cheng and Zhou Dongsheng played together, the two girls who were originally playing obediently gave up their territory. Many businessmen and politicians who were present began to doubt their own judgment. Yang Cheng could chat with Zhou Dongsheng and play together. Could it be that his real identity was an extraordinary person? However, there wasn't such a person among the famous people in Zhonghai. Many people guessed that he might be a young master from a big family. Well, Yang Cheng walked to the side of the court and asked Mo Qianni, who was chatting with a few men and women, "Miss Mo, how do you play tennis?" Mo Qianni was stunned. Although she didn't know why this man asked such a silly question, she still simply explained, "It's when someone hits it. Hit on the ground and then hit it back. Hit on the court. When it hits the court, you will lose points." "Oh, I understand." Yang Chen recalled the scenes he had seen on television before and roughly understood the gist of it. "You don't know how to play?" Mo Qianni discovered the problem and asked suspiciously. Yang Chen truthfully replied, "I haven't played before, but I roughly know how to play." Those who have played tennis basically knew that although the tennis racket looked very big and the tennis ball was much bigger than ping pong, in reality, on this seemingly small court, it wasn't easy to catch a ball that bounced up from the ground. Many beginners felt the first time they played tennis. They could clearly see the ball flying in front of them, but they just couldn't hit it. As for hitting it and then hitting it back, it was even more difficult. Under the gaze of a group of people who were ready to watch a good show, Yang Cheng swaggered with a cigarette in his mouth and walked to the court with a racket. He said to Zhou Dongsheng on the other side, "Come, I'll accompany you for a few rounds." Many people at the side of the court heard the other meaning in his words and revealed a strange expression. Mo Qianni also slightly blushed. This guy always spoke so rudely. Zhou Dongsheng, however, warmly smiled, then immediately tossed the ball and swung the racket. His movements couldn't be considered very standard, but the bending and bouncing of his body made him look elegant. The ball drew a smooth arc past the blocking net, shot to the ground on the side of Yang Cheng, and then bounced up diagonally. Yang Cheng was already standing in the position where the ball bounced. Because his right hand was holding the cigarette, he naturally held the racket in his left hand and easily swung it towards the ball. Bang! The ball and racket collided, making a suppressed, muffled sound. The tennis ball, in front of everyone's surprised eyes, flew over the blocking net and suddenly flew out of the court. Like a missile being launched into the sky, it streaked across a diagonal line. After crossing a distance of 20 to 30 meters, it actually continued to fly over the nearly 10 meters of barbed wire on the sidelines of the field and then landed in the parking lot outside the field. Many girls exclaimed, "Was this a ball that was hit by a person with his left hand?" Even if it didn't hit, it would still be understandable if it was hit out of the court. But that man just casually swung and even used his left hand and actually let the ball fly more than 10 meters of barbed wire. Even if the people present were given a cone-shaped stone with just the right weight, no one dared to say that they could easily throw the stone out of the barbed wire. Seeing the surrounding people, including Zhou Dongcheng, all showed a look of horror. Yang Cheng realized that he accidentally used too much strength. In fact, he didn't use it, but he underestimated the elasticity of the interaction between the tennis ball and the tennis racket. He smiled awkwardly, flicked the cigarette ash, and continued to put the cigarette in his mouth. Yang Cheng said, "I'm sorry, this ball is quite elastic. I'll go pick it up after I finish playing." The others all smiled stiffly. Looking at Yang Chen's arm that wasn't very muscular, they revealed a weird expression. If they were to be punched by that hand, they would probably lose their lives. Mr. Yang really has godly strength. Zhou Dongcheng was also a person who had seen the world, and he also knew that Yang Cheng's strength was not ordinary. So he quickly calmed down. He took a new ball from his follower and said, "Then let's continue." This time, Yang Cheng didn't use too much strength. He just calculated the strength to hit the ball back to the opponent's court. As for the angle, speed, and so on, Yang Cheng didn't care at all. The trajectory of the tennis ball in Yang Cheng's eyes was as slow as a turtle crawling, and there was no pressure to speak of. The people at the side of the field only saw Yang Cheng strolling leisurely on the field. Every time he stood at the spot where the ball bounced up, he would then gently push it back with one hand, and the landing point would always be where Zhou Dongcheng stood. Zhou Dongcheng didn't need to move at all to receive a ball. Everyone could see that Yang Cheng wasn't playing, but playing with the ball. Although Yang Cheng's posture of holding the racket and playing were ugly, this didn't affect the people's evaluation of his playing strength. Many young women's eyes were already shining. Yang Cheng had a cigarette in his mouth, sweat dripping from his forehead, hair blowing in the wind, slightly frowning, and a leisurely expression on his face, which had deeply stuck their eyes. Tang Wan noticed that Mo Qianni was looking at Yang Cheng with a slightly sluggish look, and her eyes were a bit strangely intoxicated like the other women. She sighed slightly. In Tang Wan's view, there was no doubt that Yang Cheng was a playboy. From the first time he looked for her by the river, she was already aware of this. Later, when she met Li Jingjing and him at her daughter's school, she was even more certain. This time, she didn't expect that it would be Mo Qianni. Li Jingjing was a simple girl, so it was normal for her to be deceived by Yang Cheng. However, Mo Qianni, a famous female public relations in the business world and an excellent manager of company, unexpectedly fell into the trap. This made Tang Wan wonder how Yang Cheng could capture the hearts of these two different but equally outstanding girls. At this moment, Tang Wan had a slight understanding of the man who was wantonly displaying his clumsy skills on the court, but was able to play the tennis in the palm of his hand. It seemed that this man's greatest characteristic was a characteristic that other men could not possess. Yang Cheng didn't know that Mo Qianni outside the court was looking at him with a gaze that she had never seen before. He also didn't expect that Tang Wan, who greeted him with a smile, had already listed him as a member of the blacklist in her heart. He only gradually realized that Zhou Dongcheng on the opposite side was almost out of strength to hit the ball back. It seemed that after continuously hitting the ball dozens of times, Zhou Dongcheng was almost out of strength. When the ball once again shot in front of him, Yang Cheng directly used his hand to firmly grasp the ball, casually spit out the cigarette, but in his mouth, and shouted to Zhou Dongcheng, "Still playing?" Zhou Dongsheng was sweating profusely and panting as she bent over. Her hands were supporting her knees so that she didn't fall to the ground. She threw the racket away and waved her hands with difficulty. She said sadly, I don't want to play anymore. Then I'm leaving. Yang Cheng really didn't want to stay in this place any longer. Originally, because of his relationship with Xiang Wei, Zhou Dongsheng was bound to be an enemy. But this enemy kept smiling at him. How could he stand it? Zhou Dongsheng was a little anxious and didn't care about the strenuous effort. He panted and shouted, Yang, Mr. Yang, wait, don't know if I have the honor to invite Mr. Yang for dinner? Have dinner your sister. When Yang Cheng thought of sitting at the opposite end of the candlelit dinner table with a gorgeously dressed and flirtatious man, his whole body felt cold. He walked to the side of the court and grabbed Mo Chinny's small hand and said, Let's go, I'm hungry, let's go eat. After saying that, he didn't give Mo Chinny a chance to react and forcefully pulled her out. Being intimately held by Yang Cheng, Mo Chinny's face couldn't help but blush, and her heart was beating fast. But she didn't have the strength and didn't seem to have the intention to pull her hand out. She could only turn around and hurriedly say goodbye to the few old CEOs, then left the tennis court with Yang Cheng. After a few of Zhou Dongsheng's attendants went up to help the dejected Zhou Dongsheng to the side of the court, someone asked with a gloomy face, Young master, that Yang Cheng doesn't know what's good for him. Should we send some brothers to give him a small gift? Zhou Dongsheng glanced at him coldly, scaring the person so much that he peed his pants. Yang Cheng is my friend. He's a real man. Don't say bad things about him in front of me in the future. Yes, young master. Zhou Dongsheng looked in the direction that Yang Cheng left and once again fell into an infatuated look. Chapter 99. By the time they got out of the Maple Forest Leisure Center, Missouri Chinny was already panting from the running. Seeing that Yang Cheng was still grabbing her hand, Mo Chinny pretended to cough. It was unknown whether it was because of her shyness or the exercise, but her face was red. What's wrong? Miss Mo, is there something wrong with your throat? Yang Cheng asked, pretending not to know. Mo Chinny glared at him. Let go of your pig trotters. Yang Cheng chuckled and didn't blush at all. However, he still let go of that fair and tender hand, even though it felt really good to hold. He even explained, Miss Mo, your words aren't up to standard. Pig trotters can't be bent to catch your hand. Mo Chinny already knew that arguing with this guy wouldn't end well, so she didn't bother to talk to him anymore and walked straight to the car. When the two of them got on the road, Yang Cheng looked at the back and saw that there was no one chasing after them. Only then did he slowly let out a sigh of relief. Mo Chinny playfully smiled and said, So it turns out that even a thick-skinned person can be afraid of someone. Are you worried that Zhou Dongsheng will chase after us? Yang Cheng was really worried that the sissy would chase after them, so he awkwardly smiled and said, Miss Mo's mind is really exquisite. You can even think of such a profound question. Don't worry. Although he's from the underworld, he's famous for being humble and polite in this circle. You can't see the domineering attitude of those rich young masters. He never forces people. Now that you mention it, he seems to be very kind. Yang Cheng muttered. Mo Chinny pressed the volume button on the steering wheel and turned the music to the minimum. She said, Of course, he can't always be so kind. If he really wasn't dangerous, then everyone wouldn't be afraid of him. I'm just saying that as long as you don't provoke him or harm his interests, Zhou Dongsheng will always treat you very gently. This is different from his father. You've seen Zhou Guanyin before? Yang Cheng asked. Mo Chinny looked at him as if he was an idiot. Of course, Dongxing Group isn't a small company. It's not strange for us to see Zhou Guanyin in some public places. But to be honest, that old man really doesn't look like a businessman. Even though he's been trying to clean himself all these years, every time I see him, I feel that he's wrapped in darkness and gloomy. Otherwise, how could he be the underground emperor of the Eastern District? Yang Chan felt that Zhou Guangyin's behavior was rather normal. At this point, Mo Chinny was silent for a while before saying, As a reward for your help today, I'll give you the opportunity to choose a place to eat. When Yang Chen heard that, he was glad that he didn't have to follow Mo Chinny to some strange places. After thinking for a while, he said, I want to eat hot pot. Mo Chinny glanced at him and said, It's not even winter yet. Why would you eat hot pot? You'll get pimples. You said to let me choose. What do you think we should eat? Yang Chung asked, feeling wronged. Food stalls. Food stalls. Big sister, didn't you say you're giving me a chance to choose? Yang Chung smiled bitterly. Mo Chinny snorted. You said it yourself. I'm talking about a chance, not the right to decide. The place you chose has been rejected. Let's go to the food stalls now. He closed his eyes in pain. This woman was too shameless. Half an hour later, Yang Chung sat with Mo Chinny in Sister Xiang's food stalls. There were a few Sichuan-style dishes in front of them. The bright red chili peppers could kill Yang Chung just by looking at them. Because it was still early, there were not many people around the food stalls. Compared to the last time he was here, it was quite deserted. The cool autumn breeze blew, bringing a chill. Mo Chinny took a sip of white wine. Seeing Yang Cheng's bullied expression, she said unhappily, What's with your expression? I'm treating you to a meal, and you're making a bitter face. Yang Chung wiped the sweat on his forehead from the spiciness. It's not like you ate it since you were young. You know, it's rare to eat such spicy food abroad. Oh, I almost forgot. So this top student in front of me came back from abroad. A wild girl from a small mountain village like me really can't compare. Mo Chinny said sarcastically. Yang Chung was too lazy to argue with her. He suddenly thought of something and asked seriously, How are you going to deal with your stepfather, Zhang Fugui? I didn't know the reason before, but you seem to be very sad these days. Now it seems that it's that man who's giving you a headache. If you need help, let me know. I'm very free, you know. Mo Chinny's chopsticks paused. She looked straight at Yang Chung and asked, You've been paying attention to whether I'm sad or not. Yang Chung smiled embarrassedly. He couldn't say that every time she walked past him, he would sneak a few glances and stare at her, but he could only say, My colleagues in the office all said that you're not in a good mood, so I just noticed. Mo Chinny's eyes were faintly disappointed. She said softly, Do you remember the last time we came here? I received a phone call. I remember. Yang Chung still remembered that he was forcefully hugged that night. It was my mom. She said that Zhang Fugui was coming to Zhonghai to work and asked me to pick him up and help him arrange it. Mo Chinny sneered and said, Actually, he didn't work so hard to come here to work. He has a huge gambling debt in our hometown. If I didn't help him pay it off, he would have been beaten to death by those people. But his reputation there is too bad, so he had to come to Zhonghai. You know his character. Why did you still let him come? Yang Chung asked curiously. Do you mind listening to a slightly long story? Mo Chinny asked. If you don't bring me here to eat next time, I'm willing to listen to your heart. Yang Chung tried to negotiate. Impossible. Yang Chung smiled sheepishly. I think it's better if you say it. Mo Chinny was like a winner, the corner of her mouth slightly raised, and then she faintly narrated, I told you last time, when I was 13, my father died, and my mother remarried Zhang Fugui. Zhang Fugui was one of the few unmarried men in the village. He was still young, and he always liked my mother, so my mother finally agreed. Actually, at that time, Zhang Fugui didn't like to gamble that much. Although our family was poor, we could still eat and wear our clothes. But after a few months, because my mother farmed every day, her body was weak, so she fell ill and couldn't get out of bed. I was only 13 at that time, and after finishing the primary school in the village, I stayed at home and couldn't go to junior high school. In fact, there was no junior high school in our village. At that time, I asked Zhang Fugui to take my mother to the nearest small town to see a doctor, because I was afraid that after my father left me, my mother would also leave me. If that happened, I would really be an orphan. I was very afraid, and I kept begging Zhang Fugui. I never wanted to call him father, but that time, in order to beg him, I kept calling him father, father. But Zhang Fugui suddenly changed so much that I didn't know him. He didn't listen to me at all, other than going to the village chief to ask for some herbs and asking me to decoct them for my mother. He didn't do anything. Later, it was my neighbor's aunt who told me that Zhang Fugui was too poor. He had no money. Even if he went to the village hospital, there was no way for him to see my mother, and there was no way for him to buy medicine. Even if he took the bus to the nearest village, he couldn't afford the fare. At this point, Mo Chinny's voice became a little hoarse, and her eyes were slightly red. She poured herself a small glass of white wine and drank it in one gulp. Then your mother, she... Yang Chung didn't continue asking. Mo Chinny said, my mother got better in the end. I don't know if it was God's mercy, or if the village chief's herbs were really useful. However, that time when she was sick, my mother seemed to have aged a few years, but I was still very afraid. At that time, I thought if my mother got sick again, but we still didn't have the money to see a doctor, what would happen? I didn't dare to think about it. At that time, I only had one thought, and that was to let my mother have the money to see a doctor. So you came to Zhonghai alone? Yang Chung suddenly understood. Mo Chinny nodded and laughed at herself. Do you think it's ridiculous and stupid? A girl who's not even 14 years old, pretending to be very mature, but in fact, she doesn't know anything. She took the train to Zhonghai alone, wanting to earn money to see her mother. Not stupid, but you're very amazing. I'm very curious how you got the money to buy the train ticket. Yang Chung asked. Mo Chinny's eyes were a little evasive. She hesitated and said, I stole a person's wallet at the train station. After that, she asked in a low voice, will you look down on me and think that I'm very shameless? I obviously did such a shameless thing, but I can still say it with such confidence. What's the big deal about stealing a wallet? I even robbed a bank. Yang Chung thought, but he naturally wouldn't say it out loud. He just shook his head and said, no, people always make mistakes. At least you're much more noble than me. I've been to the police station twice. Mo Chinny finally smiled and continued, you might know a little about what happened after that. After I came here alone, I thought of ways to study by myself. With the help of Aunt Xiong and a few other fellow villagers, and some help from the Welfare Institute, I went to junior high school. Later, because Ruashi's grandmother, who is the old CEO of Ulay International, came to our school to give a speech, she took a fancy to me and trained me. From then on, I could really raise my head in Zhonghai. If it wasn't for the old CEO, there wouldn't be today's Mo Chinny. Now you should understand why I was so angry when I found out that you, a scoundrel, married Ruashi. Yang Chung nodded in understanding. The most precious kindness in the world was nothing more than providing charcoal in a snowy day. Although Mo Chinny said it lightly, it was obvious that it allowed a girl who came from a remote mountain village, had no one to rely on, and was even dispensable in the world to enter a real school and come into contact with everything about the upper class. Moreover, it allowed her to become an elite in Zhonghai's business world. What Lin Ruashi's grandmother gave to Mo Chinny was definitely not just material help. Perhaps it was more like a spiritual pillar to support Mo Chinny. Of course, along the way, the effort that Mo Chinny put in was definitely several times more than that of an ordinary person. The bitterness, sweetness, and bitterness perhaps only she could understand. In the end, I finally made money. I still remember when I sent the first sum of money to my mother. She cried for a long time on the phone, but we were all very happy. Mother knew that I had grown up, and I also knew that I could finally take care of her. However, that was also the beginning of Zhang Fugui's obsession with gambling. He knew that I could receive a sizable salary every month, and after I settled down in Zhonghai, my gambling became bigger and bigger. In the beginning, it was just a few cents or a few yuan. Later on, I gambled 10 or 20 yuan with some people. Until these 2 years, it was already around a few hundred yuan. Mo Chinny sighed softly. Yang Chung frowned. Then why didn't you let your mother divorce him? Why didn't you let your mother leave him and live with you in Zhonghai? With your income, you could totally make mother and daughter live a good life. Why would you care about that gambling addict? Mo Chinny smiled bitterly. To you, he was a shameful gambling addict. To me, he was an incompetent and shameful stepfather. But to my mother, he was the man who took her in when she was at her most lonely. He was the man who accompanied her for more than 10 years. No matter how bad Zhang Fugui was, he did not do anything evil to my mother. He was always by her side. So for your mother, you have been giving money to help Zhang Fugui pay off his gambling debts. You even agreed to let him come to Zhonghai. Yang Chen already understood the cause of the matter. and sighed. Every family has its own difficulties. If he didn't hear it from Emo Chinny's own mouth, who would have known that this beautiful upper-class person with limitless fame would have such a dark background? Emo Chinny nodded. What else could I do? I couldn't force my mother to divorce. My mother couldn't refuse Zhang Fugui's request, and I couldn't refuse the request of my only relative. Do you think your mother loved Zhang Fugui? Yang Cheng asked. Emo Chinny was stunned and said, if she didn't love him, she wouldn't have stayed with him in that poor and remote village. Even if she knew that her daughter already had a house, a car, and a career in the bustling city, she still stayed with Zhang Fugui silently, guarding the dilapidated house and 2 acres of farmland. How can you be so sure? I guess maybe your mother didn't want your career to be affected because of her. After all, if someone knew your real background, it might be disadvantageous for you at work. I don't care. Emo Chinny was a little excited. She really didn't think of this. After being pointed out by Yang Cheng, she suddenly became a little more clear-headed. Do you really think that's the case? My mother didn't love Zhang Fugui, but was afraid of delaying my future? Yang Cheng thought for a moment and smiled strangely. If you are willing to believe me, we can do an experiment. After that, everything will come to light. Experiment? Emo Chinny looked at Yang Cheng in confusion, but out of instinctive trust, she nodded slightly. Chapter 100. When he separated from Emo Chinny, it was almost 10 o'clock at night, but Yang Cheng hadn't forgotten what happened this morning. After entering the police station, it was all thanks to Lin Ruoshi's lawyer that he was able to come out safely. It was so late that he didn't thank her and explain the cause of the matter. It was indeed unreasonable. Even if he knew that Lin Ruoshi might not want to hear it, he still felt that it was better to meet her. So, after getting the car, Yang Cheng drove directly to the hospital alone. When he was approaching the door of Lin Ruoshi's ward, Yang Cheng's footsteps stopped because he was shocked to find that there were 2 men in jackets standing at the door of the ward. Based on his intuition, Yang Cheng could easily judge that the other party was from the military. The way they stood and the way they looked around showed the unique temperament of an outstanding soldier. Who was in the ward? And they even brought such military guards to guard outside the door? With a bad feeling in his heart, Yang Cheng didn't choose to avoid, but walked quickly to the door. Stop! A man standing at the door stretched out his hand and blocked Yang Cheng's way. You're not allowed to enter, Yang Cheng said with a cheeky smile. Brothers, I'm just visiting the patient. You don't have to be so serious. I'm familiar with the people inside. If you don't believe me, open the door. You'll know when you see them. The 2 men were still livid, and they said with an indisputable tone, I said you're not allowed to enter, so you're not allowed to enter. What if I insist on entering? The smile on Yang Cheng's face disappeared instantly, and his face suddenly turned cold. A cold light flashed in the man's eyes, and he sneered, then get lost far away. With that, the man's big hand was about to push Yang Cheng away. Get out of here! Yang Cheng was enraged. He grabbed the man's hand and exerted his strength, causing the man to stumble. With a loud bang, the man crashed into the wall on the other side of the corridor. The other man saw Yang Cheng making a move, and he quickly chopped down with his hand. Yang Cheng didn't even look. He raised his knee at an even faster speed and stabbed the man's abdomen like an awl. As if he had been electrocuted, the man curled into a shrimp and fell to the ground, vomiting acid. In the blink of an eye, one of the 2 professional soldiers who had been full of disdain for Yang Cheng was knocked unconscious, while the other was spasming. They couldn't believe that the special forces they were so proud of were so vulnerable. Pulling up his pants, Yang Cheng muttered, Why would I ask you guys when I want to see my woman? Idiots! With that, he pushed open the wooden door of the ward. But the moment the door was opened, Yang Cheng acutely felt a burst of aura rushing towards him. Almost instinctively, Yang Cheng's head moved slightly to the left by 3 inches. An all-fist whistled through the air and passed right through his original position. In an instant, the fist that missed turned into an eagle claw, grabbing at Yang Cheng's neck. Yang Cheng's footsteps suddenly turned a strange arc in the narrow space. While avoiding the claw, His body moved behind the ambusher and raised his leg to kick the man's butt. However, the ambusher's reaction and speed were astonishingly fast. Just as he was about to come into contact with Yang Chun, he quickly leaped away. While one of his feet touched the ground, his other leg swept towards Yang Chun with a gust of wind. Yang Chun had already estimated the strength of this person. After confirming that there was no threat, he was too lazy to dodge this time. He put one hand vertically in front of his chest to block. Bang! A muffled sound of air exploding could be heard. That raised leg was firmly blocked by Yang Chun. Yang Chun's body didn't move an inch. At this moment, he finally saw the attacker in front of him clearly. He was wearing a gray robe. His appearance was ordinary, and his hair was slightly white. Seeing that it was an old man, Yang Chun immediately shouted angrily, "Hey, old man, I have no grudge against you. Why do you want to kill me with every move?" "Gray robe, step down." A deep and dignified voice came from the side. On the side of the ward, near the head of the bed, there was a man who looked to be in his 50s. This man was tall, handsome, and had a clear outline. His black hair was neatly combed to the back of his head. He wore a navy blue tunic suit, which was rarely seen. His whole body exuded the meticulousness of a person in a superior position. The old man, called Gray Robe, looked strangely at Yang Chun, but he obediently withdrew his foot and respectfully retreated to a corner. Yang Chun turned around and finally saw Lin Ruoshi, who was worried about him. At this moment, she was sitting on the bed, safe and sound. She was wearing a set of white, loose cotton pajamas, which made her ink-like hair look particularly alluring. She had rosy cheeks, and although she didn't have any makeup on, her exquisite jade-like facial features matched well with her rosy skin, making her look tender and alluring. 2 weeks of Chinese medicine treatment had made the beauty of the young, beautiful So reach a more soul-stirring level. It was more shocking than the first time Yang Chun saw her. However, at this moment, Lin Ruoshi looked gloomy, as if she didn't see anything in front of her. Her eyes were slightly red, as if she had just cried. She indifferently looked out of the window, so cold that it made people feel pity for her. "You are Yang Chun, right?" the man in the tunic suit asked in a deep voice. Yang Chun didn't understand the situation, but it was obvious that a person who had a master like the old man in gray as a servant would have a high status. He nodded and said, I am Ruoshi's grandfather. My name is Lin Jigua." Lin Jigua? Lin Ruoshi's grandfather? Although this man did look a little old, he didn't expect that he was Lin Ruoshi's grandfather. Yang Chun still remembered that Choi Yun had mentioned this person when she came to the hospital last time. He had been curious about whether Lin Ruoshi had a grandfather or not. He didn't expect to see him today. No. Suddenly, Lin Ruoshi turned around with red eyes and stubbornly said to Yang Chun, "He is not my grandfather. I don't know him." Yang Chun, quickly drive him out. I don't want to see him. This time, Yang Chun was stunned. What was going on? Lin Jigua frowned, and his eyes showed some sadness. He said with pain, "Ruoshi, do you hate grandfather so much? You don't even want grandfather to see you. I'll say it again. You're not my grandfather. Secondly, you've already seen me. You can leave now," Lin Ruoshi said coldly. She didn't even look at Lin Jigua in the eye. At this time, the old man in gray sighed and comforted, "Miss, the master has not been well these years. He always misses you. This time when he heard that you went to the hospital, he's been worried about you. Everyone in the family objected to the master coming to see you, but the master still came under everyone's pressure. Miss, please don't blame the master anymore. The master also has his own difficulties." Lin Ruoshi sneered. "How can I dare to blame the powerful head of the Lin family? Please don't pay attention to an insignificant little girl like me. I don't need your ridiculous pity." Lin Jigua's expression changed. He let out a long sigh and nodded. "Okay, Ruoshi, since you don't want me to stay, I will leave immediately." However, as he said that, Lin Jigua glanced at Yang Chun, who was at a loss at what to do, and said, "However, you are destined to be a daughter of our Lin family. In your body flows the purest, most noble Lin family bloodline. I absolutely won't allow you to carelessly marry a man of mutton skewer origins. Yang Chung was depressed. How could this old man say that? What's wrong with selling mutton skewers? It's not like I'm selling a duck. I am proud of selling mutton skewers. Besides, I personally went to the Civil Affairs Bureau to apply for a marriage certificate. We even slept together and had sex before marriage. Well, although we were drunk and basically forgot what it felt like, we are still a legal husband and wife, right? How can it be called a marriage carelessly? It's not like we get married after praying to the moon in martial arts movies. We don't even have a certificate before we have a baby. But Yang Chung didn't dare to say these words. After all, they were a grandfather and granddaughter. He was an outsider and a junior. He could only suffer a loss. Why? I'll marry whoever I want to marry. I am not a member of the Lin family. I am me, Lin Ruashi. Other than that damn surname that I can't change, I have nothing to do with your Lin family. Lin Ruashi became agitated and said as if she was venting. Lin Jigua's face turned cold. It doesn't matter if you admit it or not. You must get a divorce. A woman of the Lin family can only marry a successful man, not a mutton skewers vendor who has nothing. The Lin family cannot have such a joke. Joke? Lin Ruashi sneered. You and grandmother, are you also a joke? Shut up. Lin Jigua was shocked and angry. He was like a lion whose tail had been stepped on. He raised his hand and wanted to slap her. But just as he raised his hand, Lin Jigua trembled. He put down his hand slowly with a complicated expression. In the end, he didn't slap her. He sighed. I've let down your grandmother. This is my life's biggest regret. So, I must take good care of you. I will not let the Lin family's bloodline mix with a mutton skewers vendor. I'm honored to tell you that it's too late. Lin Ruashi laughed mockingly. It was unknown whether she was laughing at Lin Jigua or mocking herself. Lin Jigua's eyes widened. He looked at Yang Chung with a gaze as if he wanted to pierce through Yang Chung. He asked with a trembling voice, what did you say, you and him? Why else do you think I would marry him? Lin Ruashi laughed and asked. Yang Chung, who was at the side, felt a little awkward. He smiled foolishly and rubbed his nose. This woman was really something. Talking about that kind of thing in front of her grandfather. How shameful. Didn't she know that her husband's face was very thin? Others couldn't laugh. Not only Lin Jigua. Gray Robe, who was at the side, also revealed a shocked expression. It took a long time for him to regain his senses. Lin Jigua stared at Lin Ruashi, who was once again unwilling to speak. He raised his head and glared at Yang Chung. He said, I didn't think that things would turn out like this. But, Yang Chung, I hope that you don't do anything that will let Ruashi down. Otherwise, I will definitely not let this matter rest. Finally, Yang Chung said something decent to him. However, he was a little distressed. This depends on whether she is willing to be with me. The iron rule of the Lin family is that no matter a man or woman, you can only have one partner in your life. You must treat Ruashi well. You have no other choice. Lin Jigua said firmly. Yang Chung looked at the silent Lin Ruashi. He suddenly understood. Why did this woman marry him? It seemed that the contract marriage was just an excuse. On the surface, she refused to admit that she was a member of the Lin family for some reason. But in fact, she had always been doing it. This matter was too contradictory. Yang Chung was confused. He didn't only have one woman by his side. He said vaguely, That's the rule of your family. It has nothing to do with me. Lin Jigua's eyes were burning. Don't think that I can't deal with you just because you know some martial arts. If you dare to let Ruashi get hurt, I will be the first to not let you go. Lin Ruashi, who was on the bed, coldly glanced at Yang Chung. Yang Chung, stop talking. Let them go. No need to rush me. I will leave now. Lin Jigua stared at Yang Chung with a deep meaning. Then, he left the ward with Gray Robe. The two men who were beaten to the ground also followed. They didn't dare to stay for even a moment longer. Only the young couple was left in the room. Their eyes met, but the atmosphere was quite strange. Chapter 101. Coming out of the hospital, Lin Jigua and the others quietly returned to a military Hummer in the dark. The specially modified body of the car was like a steel fortress. Even the four tires were bulletproof. Once inside the car, the driver who had been guarding the car silently started the car. The huge car did not make too much noise, and unknowingly, they drove out of the hospital parking lot and onto the highway. The bright moonlight shone into the car. Sitting on the leather seat in the middle of the car, Lin Jigua was lost in thought. His wrinkled face showed signs of fatigue. Gray Robe, who was sitting opposite, saw this and sighed lightly. He comforted, "Master, don't be sad. Miss is just stubborn. Miss is kind and honest. On the surface, she is cold to everyone, but in reality, she values relationships more than anyone else. In fact, in Miss's heart, Master is still her closest relative." "I know this," Lin Jigua sighed. "If Ruashi doesn't recognize me, then she wouldn't be so angry at me. She wouldn't follow the rules of the Lin family and take the initiative to marry Yang Cheng. Then why is Master still so sad?" Gray Robe asked doubtfully. Lin Jigua smiled bitterly. "Maybe I'm really old. Even though I know that Ruashi is throwing a tantrum, I still hope that she will call me Grandpa and be willing to spend more time with me. I let her grandmother down. I let her mother down. I want to make it up to her, but she never gives me the chance. Then, what about young Master Cohen? He has already gone crazy." Gray Robe said softly. "Umph." Lin Jigua snorted coldly, and a sharp light flashed in his eyes. "That bastard, I don't treat him as my son. If he wasn't Ruashi's biological father, I would have killed him myself. The Lin family does not raise scum." Gray Robe did not say anything else. He knew very well that the master who had followed him for most of his life loved his family, but he was always impartial towards family members who made mistakes. Lin Jigua thought for a moment and suddenly asked, "Gray Robe, from the simple fight just now, what do you think of Yang Cheng's strength?" Gray Robe's body trembled, and he smiled bitterly. "Unfathomable. I have never met anyone in my life that could make me feel such despair. If I put my life on the line, I might be able to hold him back for a while. But to defeat him, I'm afraid that all of us Group of 8 will have a chance." Lin Jigua smiled helplessly and said, "Even if the 8 could defeat him, we would still lose because we still can't defeat the real him, not to mention that he still has other forces under his control." "Master, you mean?" Gray Robe's eyes were filled with shock. "Master, could it be that the seal is real?" Lin Jigua shook his head. "I don't know. The Treaty of God seal has always been illusory, but if Yang Cheng's strength is as unfathomable as you said, then the Treaty of God's existence might not be impossible. After all, to be able to fight against the Group of 8 with his own strength, there is no one else like him in the whole of Huaxia. Then wouldn't he be a monster?" Gray Robe was moved. "He doesn't have the strength to break the seal, and he wants all of us to fight him. If the seal really exists, if he breaks it, wouldn't we need half of the Yellow Flame Iron Brigade to have a chance to subdue him? It is precisely because he is a monster that he needs the Treaty of God's restriction." Lin Jigua smiled comfortingly. "Don't worry. The Treaty of God stipulates that to break the seal, one must fight against someone of the same level. Even if the seal is broken under other circumstances, Yang Cheng will not go against us. Don't forget, who is he to me now?" Gray Robe was stunned for a moment. Then he couldn't help but laugh. "Master is indeed wise. So Master came here today with a plan. Today, Master is forcing Miss to divorce, and Miss will definitely not listen to Master. And because of the Lin family's rules, it is even more impossible for her to divorce Yang Cheng. Then, Yang Cheng will always be the son-in-law of the Lin family." Lin Jigua laughed. "Some things are meaningless when said out loud. Actually, I'm just doing my best to let the two of them be together. Although I have been secretly protecting Ruashi for the past few years, I can't guarantee that nothing will go wrong. In addition, these years, some people have already noticed the relationship between Ruashi and the Lin family, and her safety has become even more of a problem. If Yang Cheng is by her side, just like the recent crisis, we don't need to do anything. Yang Cheng can solve it perfectly. Moreover, who can defeat one of the main gods, Pluto?" Gray Robe nodded in agreement and said, "I'm just afraid that Miss and Yang Cheng will notice Master's intentions in the future. At that time, no matter who falls out, it won't be a good thing," Lin Jigua said in a low voice. "Everything depends on how far Ruashi and him can go." In the ward, Yang Chung and Lin Ruoshi looked at each other for a long time. Finally, because of the awkwardness, Lin Ruoshi was the first to turn her head to the side and continue to look out of the window. Her pretty face was a little red, and she pretended to be unhappy and asked, "What are you looking at? You found out my secret, and you want to see me make a fool of myself. Are you very proud?" Yang Chung smiled shyly, a little but not too much. Don't worry. What I said just now were words of anger. I won't abide by the Lin family's stupid rules. I won't shamelessly hold on to you. Once the 2-year contract is up, you can leave or stay. It's up to you. Lin Ruoshi said coldly. Yang Chung looked at the angry woman on the bed with some playfulness. Leave or stay? Up to me? Why? I don't have to leave, but can I choose to stay? Lin Ruoshi found that her words were wrong, and her face became even more charming. She said in a low voice, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're here or not. It doesn't affect me. Yang Chung didn't say anything and kept staring at Lin Ruoshi until the woman's hair stood on end. Finally, she couldn't bear the teasing look and fiercely turned her head to glare at Yang Chung and said, I told you to stop looking. Did you hear me? Wife, you're so beautiful. Yang Chung suddenly said softly. Lin Ruoshi's originally beating heart suddenly stopped, and even her breathing stopped, and she forgot to breathe. A pair of limpid eyes stared straight at Yang Chung, and there was a bit of panic in them. After a while, 2 blushes appeared on her cheeks, and her eyelashes trembled slightly, and she lowered her head in silence. After a moment of silence, Yang Chung took the lead and said, Actually, I came here tonight to thank you for something. Lin Ruoshi still lowered her head and didn't speak. I have to thank you for sending Lawyer Zhang to help me get out of the police station this morning, or else I might have been tortured to death by your sister surnamed Kai. Yang Chung said jokingly. No way. Lin Ruoshi finally raised her head, and her face was still red. Yonyan is not a female devil. If you don't do bad things, why would she hurt you for no reason? You're not going to ask why I went to the police station? Yang Chung was puzzled. Lin Ruoshi shook her head. I'm not interested in knowing. It will only annoy me. Gently brushing her hair, Lin Ruoshi sighed, and her face finally returned to its usual cold look. Yang Chung, can you promise me something? What is it? Yang Chung was curious. It was rare for Lin Ruoshi to talk to him in a serious tone. Lin Ruoshi said, Can you be like other normal men, work well, and don't do things that waste time and energy all day long? I don't object to you playing after work. Even if you occasionally don't go home at night, I won't say anything about you. I just hope that the man at home will have a stable career and not make people feel very illusory and erratic. If you can make some achievements, I can even give you the position of the company's president. You have that ability, you know very well, but you've been unwilling to face it seriously. Yang Chung was stunned and smiled. Miss Lin Ruoshi, have you found that you are more and more aware of being a wife? What? Lin Ruoshi frowned. You know how to take care of the family, know how to rely on men, know how to be tolerant, know how to plan for your husband, know how to contribute to your husband, and know how to support and encourage your husband. Yang Chung said with a smile, Not only do you have the awareness of being a wife, but you are also a good and virtuous wife. Lin Ruoshi felt a little embarrassed, pursed her lips, and asked, Don't mention these useless things. Do you agree or not? No. Yang Chung directly rejected. I really don't have any ambitions. I feel that I'm living a good life in the public relations department. I don't want to deal with too many troubles. If you really give me the position of the company's president, Ulay International might go bankrupt in 3 days. So, although I really want to make my dear wife satisfied, I really don't want to force myself. I can only say sorry. You, being so easily rejected. Lin Ruoshi was so angry that her lips trembled, and her face became cold again. Mud can't help a wall. Get out. I don't want to see you. TSK, TSK. You became not cute so quickly. Yang Chung smiled deeply and didn't argue with Lin Ruoshi. He quietly walked out of the room, leaving only a sleep early. The one who sent him off was a pillow that Lin Ruoshi had casually tossed over from the bed. Unfortunately, it hit the door. The next morning, Yang Chung just delivered breakfast to the women in the office, and before he turned on the computer to start his gaming career, his phone rang. The curious Yang Chung looked at the number and was stunned for a moment. It turned out to be little Zhao from Rose Bar, one of Qiang Wei's right-hand men. If something happened to Qiang Wei should call him. Why did little Zhao suddenly call him? After picking up, Yang Chung asked while eating a soup bun, "Little Zhao, what's the matter so early in the morning?" Little Zhao hesitated on the other side of the phone, then said, "Brother Yang, big sister. Big sister she, Qiang Wei? What happened to her?" Yang Chung heard the sadness in little Zhao's voice and suddenly became alert. Did something happen to Qiang Wei so early in the morning? Chapter 102. He hurriedly drove all the way to the Rose Bar and came to an emergency stop at the entrance. The brakes made a sharp screeching sound, attracting the attention of passers-by. Yang Chung got out of the car and immediately walked into the bar that was empty this early in the morning. Inside the dimly lit bar, there were many people wearing different clothes, but their expressions were solemn. When they saw Yang Chung enter, they all stood up and nodded to greet Yang Chung. These people were all Qiang Wei's confidants in the Red Thorn Society, so they were very clear about the intimate relationship between Yang Chung and Qiang Wei. They also understood that this man was a potential boss of the Red Thorn Society. The round-faced little Zhao stood guard at the entrance. Seeing Yang Chung walk over, he walked up with a gloomy face. "Yang Ji, big sis just fell asleep. She's not in any danger." Yang Ching's expression wasn't very good. Hearing that Qiang Wei wasn't in any danger, he didn't show any signs of happiness. "Little Zhao, tell me what happened. How did Qiang Wei get shot?" Little Zhao said with a bit of self-blame. "Our defensive measures weren't good enough, or we were too careless. As it turned out, just last night, the Red Thorn Society accepted the allegiance of one of the West Union Society's strongholds. As the leader, Qiang Wei naturally went to accept the other party's allegiance. But she didn't expect that among the several small leaders who had pledged allegiance, one of them suddenly changed his mind at the last minute. He took out a pocket pistol from his pocket and fired at Qiang Wei at close range. Although Qiang Wei's skills weren't bad, she couldn't be as fearless as Yang Chung against bullets. Even though she moved her body at the first moment, the bullet that was supposed to pierce through her heart still entered her abdomen. Following that, the scene turned chaotic. After the Red Thorn Society executed the killer in an instant, Rose endured the gunshot wound and left the scene. However, as soon as she got into the car, she was in a semi-conscious state due to the blood loss and pain. Actually, with Big Sis's years of experience, she definitely could have sensed it before the bastard took out the gun. Little Zhao said with red eyes and pain, "But Big Sis is too tired these days. She only sleeps less than 4 hours a day, constantly holding meetings with her subordinates, making plans, and taking us to reclaim territory. That's why her body isn't in good condition and didn't react in time. We can only blame ourselves for being useless. We only know how to fight and kill. We can't help Big Sis, and we have to worry about everything." Yang Chung took a deep breath, patted little Zhao's shoulder, didn't say anything, and headed straight to Qiang Wei's room. Along the way, the number of bodyguards increased by several times. Clearly, everyone in the Red Thorn Society was very nervous. After all, without Rose, the Red Thorn Society would lose their brains and collapse in an instant. When he entered the room, the air was filled with the faint smell of disinfectant, which mixed with the original fragrance, seemed a little strange. There was a petite figure standing in the room. To Yang Cheng's surprise, it was Chun Bo's sister, Chun Rong, whom he had personally driven here. Chun Rong was wearing a white blouse that accentuated her ample bosom. She was wearing black cropped pants that wrapped around her exquisite buttocks, making her look delicate and lovely. Her light makeup made this young girl from the mountains look even more fashionable. She was completely different from the rustic girl he met a few days ago. The only thing that didn't change was her clear eyes. Chun Rong was holding a basin of water with a white towel in it, as if she had just wiped Qiang Wei's face. When she saw Yang Chung enter the room, her eyes turned red. "Brother Yang, big sister Qiang Wei, I know." Yang Chung forced a smile. "Don't worry, didn't the doctor come already?" Next to the bed Qiang Wei was lying on, There was a stand for an 4-drip, and 2 bottles of medicine were slowly dripping into it. After all, to Qiangwei, home was the safest place, so she wouldn't go to the hospital and would only receive treatment in her room. Chun Rong said sadly, "The bullet has been taken out, but the wound will take a long time to heal. She almost died. Big Sister Qiangwei is a good person. I really don't want anything to happen to her. Since you're here to take care of her, you should know Big Sister Qiangwei's real identity." Yang Chung sighed. "Will she blame me for sending you here?" "No." Chun Rong shook her head hurriedly. "I know. Although Big Sister Qiangwei has a secret identity, she treats me very well. She treats everyone here very well, and everyone takes good care of me. I'm already very satisfied. Don't worry, Big Brother Yang, I won't tell my brother. I think you will understand." Seeing Chun Rong's true feelings, Yang Chung was also a little relieved. It seemed that Qiangwei didn't choose the wrong person. Perhaps it would be a good choice to let this little girl stay by her side. She needed a companion, a suitable assistant, or even a successor. "You go out first, I'll take care of things here." Yang Chung smiled. Chun Rong nodded obediently and quietly walked out of the room, closing the door behind her. Walking to the bedside, Yang Chung bent down and looked at Qiangwei, who had already fallen asleep on the bed. At this moment, the beautiful woman's face was pale, and her lips were even a little chapped. She didn't have her usual radiance. Her eyebrows were slightly furrowed, as if she was having an unhappy dream, and also seemed to be in pain. Yang Cheng's heart ached a little, and he slowly reached out to touch Qiangwei's face. It was cold, but it made Yang Chung feel bone-chilling. Suddenly, Qiangwei's eyelashes trembled, and she slowly opened her eyes. Qiangwei's eyes were a little cloudy at this moment, but her gaze was very focused. She stared at Yang Chung, revealing a clear smile, and asked in a small voice, "Am I very ugly right now?" Yang Chung sat on the bedside and lightly said, "Someone once said that if a man sees a woman sick on the bed and still likes that woman, then the man really loves that woman. But now, I feel that this sentence is not accurate. Very ugly, right?" Qiangwei smiled somewhat miserably. Yang Chung shook his head. "My baby Qiangwei, even when she's sick on the bed, is still breathtakingly beautiful. As long as it's a man, they will like you, not to mention a big pervert like me." Qiangwei, who had turned from sadness to joy, couldn't help but laugh, but just as she laughed, because it pulled on her wound, she frowned and sucked in a breath of cold air. "Don't move. If the wound reopens, it will be terrible," Yang Chung hurriedly advised. Qiangwei said dejectedly, "I can only blame myself for being too confident. I always thought that I could hold on, but when that person took out the pistol last night, I realized that I was too tired. My perception is actually so weak. If it was in the past, I wouldn't have been so easily injured. Don't work so hard. If you have any difficulties, you can tell me. I don't want to see you get injured again." Yang Chung said seriously. Qiangwei bit her lip. I know that even if you were alone, you could do all this, but I don't want to just be a woman who relies on you to get to the top. I don't like the feeling of being a vase. I hope that I am valuable to you." "Situ Qiangwei." Yang Chung stared at the woman with burning eyes, and suddenly shouted out Qiangwei's full name. Qiangwei was shocked. Seeing Yang Cheng's angry look, she was a little scared and couldn't speak. "You are worthless to me. You are priceless to me. You are priceless to me." Qiangwei's eyes were instantly filled with hot tears, overflowing and soaking the pillowcase. She felt that the blood in her body was boiling, but apart from sobbing, she couldn't speak. She had worked hard and sacrificed everything for this sentence, wasn't it? Yang Chung chuckled, took 2 tissues from the bedside table, and gently helped Qiangwei wipe the overflowing tears from the corner of her eyes. "Why are you crying? I didn't scold you. I didn't hit you. I just said what was in my heart. Do you know, when I heard that you were shot, the bun in my mouth became like the bullet, as if I had swallowed the bullet myself. At that moment, I realized how important you are to me, Vixen. Let me tell you, you're not allowed to get hurt in the future. If you get shot again because of these trivial things, I won't hesitate to capture you, a woman, and keep you in a cage like a canary." Yang Chung threatened. Qiangwei pouted. "I don't dare to do it again." Yang Cheng continued to wipe her tears, and he couldn't help laughing. Is what I said very mushy? Actually, I didn't think much before saying it, because that's how I feel. Xiangwei smiled and shook her head. I like it when you're mushy. After wiping her tears, Yang Cheng quietly pondered for a while, and then asked, Xiangwei baby, where exactly are you hurt? I don't know. You can see for yourself. Xiangwei's pale face showed a trace of redness, and she said, You're still tempting me in this state. Yang Cheng smiled and gently lifted the thin quilt on Xiangwei's body. After lifting the quilt, Xiangwei's body was revealed, wearing a loose white button pajamas. He could vaguely see that under the pajamas, below her chest and above her abdomen, there was a hemostatic bandage, which should also be applied with medicine. After carefully observing for a while, Yang Cheng began to unbutton Xiangwei's clothes. Xiangwei suddenly thought of something and shyly said, Hubby, I'm already like this. You still want it. Wait until my body is better, then I'll give it to you. What are you thinking, little vixen? Yang Cheng couldn't help but smile. I want to heal you if I do that with you. Won't I kill you? Heal. Although Xiangwei was curious about what he meant, she knew that she had misunderstood Yang Cheng's meaning, so she still felt her cheeks heat up. Although the two of them had been honest with each other several times, when Yang Cheng unbuttoned her clothes one by one, revealing the white skin of her chest, Xiangwei still felt unusually excited and shyly turned her head away, not daring to look. Although Yang Cheng had a strange feeling in his heart, he knew that this was not something fun, so he didn't care too much. After unbuttoning her pajamas, what entered his eyes was a smooth abdomen without the slightest bit of fat. Further up, the towering peaks in front of Rose's chest were especially eye-catching. They were round and perky, and the two half-spheres didn't even have a protective cover. Just like that, they appeared in Yang Chen's field of vision. Chapter 103. Xiangwei had already closed her eyes and no longer cared about all this. Although she was facing the man closest to her, she was still relatively conservative in this aspect. Even if she had an enchanting side, it was just to make the man more happy. At this moment, the area above Xiangwei's abdomen and below her chest was wrapped in white cloth. The smell of traditional Chinese medicine could be smelled coming from there, mixed with Xiangwei's charming body fragrance, which was particularly refreshing. Yang Cheng narrowed his eyes and picked up a pair of delicate small scissors from the drawer of the bedside table. He pointed at the bandage and cut it. The bandage was not too tight. After being cut, it gradually fell to the bed, revealing Xiangwei's skin. Husband, what are you doing? Xiangwei felt that something was wrong and asked after seeing this scene. Yang Cheng didn't reply, and minding his own business, he cut off the bandages wrapped around the wound and carefully removed it, revealing Rose's gunshot wound. Although it was a little painful, Xiangwei did not care much. She just saw that her ugly bloody wound was seen by Yang Cheng. She looked at Yang Cheng sadly, worried that Yang Cheng would not like it. After all, no one would want their woman to have a hole. In fact, the injury was not a serious matter for Xiangwei, but if this gunshot wound left a scar on her abdomen, it would be the most unacceptable for a young woman who was born with a beautiful body and loved beauty. Yang Cheng looked at the bright red in front of him and looked at Xiangwei with pity. He comforted her. Don't worry, I'm not a pretty boy who can't see blood. In my eyes, the gunshot wound is like a soldier's medal. I will only like it, not hate it. But I don't like it. Xiangwei whispered and turned her head away. Yang Cheng smiled and suddenly raised the scissors in his hand. He cut the tip of his other hand's index finger. After cutting the skin of his index finger without hesitation, red blood flowed out from Yang Cheng's fingertip and dripped onto Xiangwei's wound. Xiangwei felt a cold liquid at her wound. She turned her head in confusion, and her beautiful eyes were suddenly full of shock. Husband, you don't talk. Don't move. No matter what you see or feel, don't move. Yang Cheng stopped Xiangwei seriously. Xiangwei saw Yang Cheng's serious expression and didn't dare to say anything. She watched as Yang Cheng's blood kept gushing out and dripping on her wound. Soon, Xiangwei felt a trace of numbness from her wound. It was an indescribable feeling. It was as if some force was pulling her body, but she couldn't control it. The original pain around the wound was gradually replaced by a strange numbness and warmth. But the next scene was hard for Qiang Wei to imagine. The wound on Yang Cheng's fingertip, which had only been cut for a few seconds, was actually scabbing at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was healing the bleeding wound. Yang Cheng frowned and picked up the scissors again. He cut the scar that had just healed and let the blood drip down again. That finger didn't seem to belong to him at all. It was merciless. In this way, Yang Cheng's finger continued to scab and heal, and he kept cutting it himself so that the blood could continue to drip. What kind of pain was it to continuously injure a person's wound? Qiang Wei finally understood what feeling Yang Cheng was talking about. It was really unbearable, not because her body felt itchy and unbearable, but because she saw Yang Cheng constantly cutting her fingertips with the cold scissors to let the blood flow. The 10 fingers were connected to the heart. Qiang Wei felt that the scissors were clearly stabbing her heart. But seeing Yang Cheng concentrating on dripping his own blood on her wound, Qiang Wei didn't dare to move. She only felt the tears that had just stopped welling up in her eyes again. The tears that she hadn't shed in the past 20 years of her life seemed to have been made up for in this morning. He was constantly hurting himself, using his own blood to heal himself. About 7 or 8 minutes later, Yang Cheng's finger healed for the umpteenth time. Yang Cheng saw that the blood in Qiang Wei's wound was almost done, then he put down the scissors. After wiping his finger with a tissue, it was as if there was no wound at all. Qiang Wei laid on the bed and stared at Yang Cheng. She didn't know when, but her beautiful oval face had recovered some color, and her jade-like face looked very gentle. "Okay, rest for another 10 minutes, and you should be fine," Yang Cheng said with a smile. Qiang Wei seemed to finally come back to her senses. She hesitated for a while before asking, "How did this happen? I was obviously seriously injured just now, but now I feel that the wound has healed. Don't think too much. Just think of my blood as the most advanced healing medicine." But no buts. Yang Cheng looked abnormally calm, and his eyes were slightly wandering. "I don't want to be seen as a monster, so don't ask me about this, okay?" Seeing the trace of sorrow on Yang Cheng's face, Qiang Wei immediately stopped asking questions. She had never seen Yang Cheng show such deep sorrow. What kind of secret was hidden in this man's body? What kind of past was torturing him? Behind his seemingly limitless power, what kind of gloomy world was there? "You're not a monster," Qiang Wei said with a determined face. "When you're injured, you can heal yourself immediately. Even if you fall from more than 10 floors, you'll be unscathed. If you're not a monster, I don't believe it myself. If I say you're not a monster, then you're not a monster." Qiang Wei stretched out a warm hand and pressed on the back of Yang Cheng's hand, acting coquettishly and stubbornly. Yang Cheng smiled bitterly, "But some people don't think that way. Then I'll be a monster with you." "Fool!" The warm and sweet quiet time always seemed to pass quickly. After kissing with Qiang Wei for a while in the bedroom, there was a knock on the door. Except for a few of Qiang Wei's most important confidants, no one dared to knock on this door. "Come in," Qiang Wei said lazily. The one who opened the door carefully was Xiao Zhao. This round-faced young man had a solemn look on his face when he entered the room. He was frowning, but when he saw that Rose was already sitting on the bed, dressed in clean white pajamas and smiling at him, he wondered if his eyes were playing tricks on him. "Big sister, why are you?" Xiao Zhao stuttered. "Why? Are you not happy that my body recovers quickly?" No. Xiao Zhao quickly waved his hand. He really couldn't figure out why Qiang Wei, who was unconscious, suddenly recovered after treating the gunshot wound. Looking at Yang Cheng, who was yawning, Xiao Zhao couldn't help but guess if it was a miracle brought by this magical man. But Yang Cheng was not a doctor, nor was he a doorman. How could he make Qiang Wei recover so quickly? But no matter what, Qiang Wei's miraculous recovery made Xiao Zhao beam with joy. He suddenly had a pillar of support. "Big sister, luckily you woke up, or else we really wouldn't know what to do next. Someone wants to come to our bar to see you," Xiao Zhao said. "Who?" It's your father, West Union Society's President Situ. He also brought a lot of West Union Society's leaders. He said he wants to visit Big Sister's injury," Xiao Zhao carefully said. An imperceptible light flashed in Qiang Wei's eyes. She glanced at Yang Cheng. Yang Cheng gave her an indifferent look. Qiang Wei nodded and said knowingly, "Xiao Zhao, you can go out first. Take good care of them. Make sure they don't get into fights. I'll go out after I take a shower." "Okay, big sister." Xiao Zhao hesitated, but still asked with concern, "But big sister, are you really okay? You'll know in a bit." After Xiao Zhao left, Qiang Wei shyly looked at Yang Cheng. "Hubby, you can go out first. I want to take a shower. I'll help you keep a lookout." Yang Cheng said seriously. Qiang Wei rolled her eyes. Clearly, she was already immune to Yang Cheng's roguish behavior. Yang Cheng saw that he couldn't taste any benefits. He could only pat his butt and reluctantly walked out of the bedroom. He walked towards the bar's lobby. As soon as he entered the lobby, he felt the entire bar's atmosphere suffocating. At this time, the bar was already filled with people. There were at least 20 to 30 people on each side. Moreover, every one of them had a dark expression on their face and were laughing sinisterly. On one side of the bar was Xiao Zhao and a few other young Red Thorn Society members. Red Thorn Society was established not too long ago. Even though it was developing rapidly, the majority of them were made up of youngsters. That was why they were brave and fierce in many of their confrontations with West Union Society. On the other side of the bar, West Union Society's people were led by Qiang Wei's father, Situ Mingze. Situ Mingze's facial features didn't resemble Qiang Wei's, but they both had a dignified appearance. He was wearing a Givenchy white checkered shirt, and on his hand was a Rolex silver collector's watch. He looked like an ordinary middle-aged gold-collar worker in the city. His temperament was completely unlike that of an underworld boss. At this moment, Situ Mingze was sitting on a black leather sofa with his legs crossed. In his hand was a purple clay teapot. He was leisurely sipping on his tea. At Situ Mingze's side, there were several people dressed in different attire. What made Yang Cheng surprised was that the familiar Zhang who was also sitting beside Situ Mingze. When he saw Yang Cheng walk out, he didn't have any reaction, as if he didn't know him at all. The underlings of both sides were at each other's throats, but the few West Union Society bigwigs were leisurely and carefree, whispering to each other, as if they didn't take all of this seriously. It could be seen that these West Union Society leaders, who had seen the wind and waves of the storm, were still very different from these little kids of Red Thorn Society. Before, Yang Cheng had only seen Situ Mingze in photos. This was the first time he had seen him in person. Speaking of which, this man who maintained himself well was his father-in-law. Unfortunately, Qiang Wei had already fallen out with him. As her son-in-law, he should just stop worrying. "Little Zhao, what are you blindly staring at? Come here, make me a glass of Bloody Mary." Yang Cheng beckoned at the little leopard like little Zhao. He didn't want to compete with this group of people in that ridiculous manner. It would be better to drink some wine and wait for Qiang Wei to come out. Although little Zhao felt that the situation was a bit awkward, he didn't dare to not go when Yang Cheng called him. He immediately got down from his seat and happily went to make a drink for Yang Cheng. This scene caused the atmosphere in the bar to become tense. Everyone looked at Yang Cheng with strange gazes. Among the West Union Society's big shots, a thin-faced man with a pipe in his mouth raised his eyebrows. He seemed to be the youngest among them. He took down his pipe and pointed it at Yang Cheng. He sneered and asked, "You brat, are you that slut's gigolo?" On the other hand, their side only came because they were worried about Rose's injuries, so they didn't bring enough people or weapons. How could they contend against these thugs who kill without batting an eye? But in their own territory, being suppressed like this, the small leaders of the Red Thorn Society all didn't feel good. A wave of ruthlessness was stifled in the group's chest. They wouldn't feel good if they didn't vent it out. Yang Cheng silently picked up the cocktail that little Zhao had mixed and gave a toast to Little Smoke Bro. He smiled and said, "Hey, I heard from that fatty that you're called Little Castrate. What is their problem?" Little Smoke Bro proudly tapped the ash on his smoking pipe. Yang Cheng couldn't help but smile and said, "Your surname, Shabili, right? Why?" The smoking pipe man asked after some thought. "I'm from the same family as Li Lianying, who served Empress Dowager Cixi." Otherwise, why would you call me castrate and also bring along a brat? In fact, if you don't mind, it's also not bad to call you little pigeon. Yang Chung happily suggested. Little Smoke Bro's face instantly darkened. He was so angry that he laughed and said, "Your mouth is really stinky. It seems like you still don't know that as long as any of my brothers behind me pull the trigger, there will be a hole in your head. And if they shoot down like this, you will be castrated first." Yang Chung leisurely drank a mouthful of wine and cheerfully smacked his lips. "Look at you being so anxious. If there's something we can talk about it. Actually, for someone like you who is kept by President Situ, even if you really are castrated, I can understand. After all, you are kept by a man, so it doesn't matter if you are castrated. In any case, that thing is useless to you." Everyone present understood the meaning behind these words. Not only did he scold Little Smoke Bro, but he also included Situ Mingza, who hadn't spoken until now, in the same category as him. Little Smoke Bro narrowed his eyes, and the fat man who just spoke also revealed an evil grin. They all looked at Situ Mingza, hoping that the president would give them instructions to take action. The Red Thorn Society's side all laughed, looking at Yang Chung with admiration and worry in their eyes. After all, if they provoked the other side with guns, they would be shot into a hornet's nest in an instant. Situ Mingza didn't get too excited. Tidying up his clothes, he raised his head with a smile that wasn't a smile, looking at Yang Chung as if he was looking at a clown. "What's the point, little brother? Sometimes people should know the truth. People under other people's eaves have no choice but to lower their heads. Your actions have humiliated my brothers, making it difficult for me as the boss." Yang Chung didn't like the look in Situ Mingza's eyes. He hated the way people looked at ants. Just based on this look, Yang Chung had already blacklisted this guy in his heart. "In fact, from the beginning, I've had my doubts. Why aren't you angry because your brother said bad things about your daughter, and instead speak up because your brother was humiliated? Or could it be, in your eyes, other than West Union society, nothing else is important?" Yang Chung had always been curious about this question. Could a father really ignore his family? In order to obtain greater power and status, could he disregard his daughter's departure and even force his daughter to rebel? Moreover, Xiang Wei wasn't just any ordinary outstanding girl. From the fact that she established the West Union's second-largest Red Thorn Society in a few short years, one could see her extraordinary ability. Situ Mingza seemed to have heard the world's funniest joke. He laughed and slapped the sofa. "You really are a silly and adorable young man. A naive and adorable young man." "I don't like these two sentences." Yang Qing honestly said, "I'm not silly, and even more so not naive. So what? Whatever I want to say about you, you can do it. No one can stop me. You, even more so." Situ Mingza revealed a stern expression, as if he was a lion that had just woken up from a deep sleep. "Xiang Wei is my daughter. No matter what, she is still my daughter. But who said that a daughter can't become an enemy? Your words are really contradictory." Yang Chung frowned. "It's not contradictory at all." Situ Mingza sneered. "Do you know that more than 10 years ago, the American missiles blew up Huaxia's embassy in the Southern Alliance? I have a bit of an impression. I was still young at that time." Yang Chung nodded. "At that time, Huaxia wasn't as powerful as it is now. The American officials directly used a mistaken bombing as an excuse and were too lazy to explain further. At the same time, the American president who came to visit Huaxia had a face full of grief as he expressed his sympathy for their country's bombing. The truth is like that. Benefits are benefits, and feelings are feelings. There's nothing strange about that." Yang Chung finally understood what he meant. His son Xiang Wei was injured by his people, but it had nothing to do with him coming to visit Xiang Wei. He couldn't help but shake his head and laugh. "I suddenly feel that you're the naive one. Do you think you're America? All I know is that you're definitely not Huaxia." Situ Mingza sneered. Little Smoke Bro, who was sitting at the side, didn't understand this conversation and said impatiently, "Boss, let me shoot this brat." Without waiting for Little Smoke Bro to make a move, Zhang Hu had been sitting there without moving, suddenly grabbed the gun from a guard behind him and shouted, "You don't need to do anything. This brat is getting impatient. I'll help boss kill him first. With that, Zhang Hu pulled off the safety and aimed the gun at Yang Cheng. Everyone in the bar was nervous. They didn't expect Zhang Hu to suddenly be so angry that he wanted to kill someone for Situ Mingze. Stop! Situ Mingze shouted at Zhang Hu and said with satisfaction, Old Hu, I know you're loyal, but now isn't the time to shoot someone. Don't forget our purpose today. But boss, Zhang Hu was a little anxious and wanted to say something. Listen to my orders, Situ Mingze said firmly. Zhang Hu could only angrily throw the gun back to the guard behind him and sat back in his seat. However, he still glared at Yang Cheng fiercely. Yang Cheng's expression didn't change at all, but his heart was blooming with joy. This Zhang Hu's acting skills were quite good. He could practically win an Oscar. I came here today to see how my daughter Qiang Wei's injuries are. I don't have any intention of making a move. Otherwise, it would be more in line with my style to plant a few bombs in the bar, Situ Mingze said. But if I don't see my daughter, I can't guarantee what I'll do. Everyone's nerves tensed up again. After all, Situ Mingze wouldn't joke around. However, they couldn't let the injured Qiang Wei come out. Subconsciously, everyone from Red Thorn Society moved closer to Qiang Wei's position. If Situ Mingze's people wanted to force their way in, everyone was prepared to fight with their lives. Right at this moment, a familiar voice came from the corridor. Don't block the way. Everyone from Red Thorn Society turned around in shock. They discovered that Qiang Wei, who was wearing a violet lace blouse, tight black cropped pants, and a colorful white belt, had suddenly appeared behind them. Her soft long hair was still a little wet, as if she had just taken a shower. Her cheeks were tender red, her eyes were moist, and she looked enchanting. Big sis, you're all right? Many people from Red Thorn Society were shocked speechless. Wasn't Qiang Wei shot? Why does it seem like she's fine? The few big shots from West Union Society also stood up in shock. They didn't dare to believe it. They clearly knew that Qiang Wei suffered a gunshot wound to her abdomen and was probably unconscious. How could she suddenly be alive and healthy in front of everyone? Furthermore, it seemed like she wasn't injured at all. Of course, they didn't think that their own intelligence was wrong. However, they couldn't understand how a gunshot wound could recover so quickly. Could it be that she was pretending to be fine? Forcefully holding on? It doesn't seem like it. Many colors flashed through Situ Mingze's deep eyes. Finally, his eyes met with Qiang Wei's. This pair of father and daughter, who had become enemies, didn't say a word. It was like a family that hadn't seen each other for a long time. They looked at each other, and the atmosphere became strange again. Chapter 105. You've lost weight, Situ Mingze said with a hint of pity in his eyes. Not at all. I'm just right, Qiang Wei replied indifferently. This scene made it hard for everyone to understand what was going on. Didn't this pair of father and daughter already shed all pretense of cordiality for a few years? How could they calmly talk about the problem of their daughter's figure? Situ Mingze looked at Qiang Wei's soft and beautiful face and sighed. You're looking more and more like your mother. You're practically the same as her when she was young. I don't remember, Qiang Wei said indifferently. You probably don't remember, but she left us after giving birth to you. Speaking of which, you and your mother are really heartless to me. One left me after giving birth to you, and the moment you grew up, you also left me, Situ Mingze said with a sigh. The problem isn't us, it's you. It's just that you can't understand. Qiang Wei's face was calm. You came here today to say this. Don't say that, I'm still your father, whether you admit it or not. Half of my blood flows in your body. You can't deny this. Situ Mingze seemed to be a bit proud. No matter how strong your wings are in this life, you will always have the mark of Situ, Qiang Wei. Qiang Wei's hand clenched into a fist, but then she loosened it. You're old, you like to talk nonsense. Huh? Situ Mingze raised his head and laughed. That's right, I'm indeed old. I even have a few more strands of white hair recently. But luckily I have a good daughter like you. When I'm old, I won't be lonely. You'll be lonely, Qiang Wei said resolutely. That's hard to say. Situ Mingze glanced at Qiang Wei's body strangely. Your gunshot wound, is it okay? Qiang Wei sneered. Thanks for your concern. Your subordinates' shooting skills aren't that good. I'm really happy that you didn't get a serious gunshot wound. Really? Although it's a bit of a pity if there's nothing wrong with your body, then you'll be able to attend the banquet on time next week, Situ Mingzi said. Don't worry, I'll go. Xiang Wei said, if there's nothing else, you can leave now. At this moment, a young leader of the Red Thorn Society picked up a phone call. After whispering a few words, he ran behind Xiang Wei and whispered something in Xiang Wei's ear. Xiang Wei's expression changed. Looking at Situ Mingzi's complacent smile, a sharp light flashed in her eyes. Your shamelessness and ability to seize every opportunity are both better than mine. I'm old and I like to be lazy. Rather than fighting with you, I might as well find a chance to take it back. Situ Mingzi laughed. Now it's good. I've taken back the 3 territories that you stole from me. Moreover, I didn't lose a single one of my brothers. You're welcome to come and steal from me again. I won't forcefully defend them, really. After saying that, Situ Mingzi waved his hand. The West Union Society's people all stood up. A few of them were already laughing maniacally as they followed behind Situ Mingzi and walked out of the Rose Bar. The Red Thorn Society's people all heaved a sigh of relief, but when they saw Xiang Wei frowning, they all went up to ask what happened. After Xiang Wei explained a little, everyone became indignant. It turned out that when Rose was injured and the Red Thorn Society was in chaos, Situ Mingzi came to the bar to put pressure on them. On the other hand, he sent a large group of people to brazenly take back control of the 3 territories that had been taken away. Yang Cheng, who had been sitting by the bar and watching the scene unfold, finally finished his 3rd cocktail. After a hiccup, he jumped down from his seat and walked to Xiang Wei's side. In front of everyone, he pulled Xiang Wei into his embrace and patted her soft back. Don't frown. After the banquet ends next week, everything will be over. Xiang Wei rested her head on Yang Cheng's shoulder, enjoying the unique smell of tobacco and alcohol on the man's body, and nodded slightly. The Red Thorn Society's group of youngsters saw their boss gently falling into the man's embrace. They all revealed a surprised and ambiguous smile, but all of them silently gave their blessings. After leaving the bar, Yang Cheng looked at the time. It was already past noon. He touched his stomach and felt hungry, but he was too lazy to go back to the company's cafeteria. He suddenly remembered the restaurant Lu Mingyu took him to eat and felt that the food was good, and it was close to here, so he drove there alone. After entering the restaurant, the waiter led them to a table for 2 against the wall. Because he was alone, Yang Cheng was too lazy to order a drink and directly ordered a meat and a vegetable, as well as a small soup dumpling. He planned to go back to the company to take a nap after eating. Before the dishes were served, another group of guests came in from the front door. Yang Cheng was slightly surprised. He actually knew the people who came. It was old Li's family that he hadn't seen for a long time. What made Yang Cheng feel even more strange was that not only old Li, but also Li Jingjing and Li's mother, there was also an acquaintance, Jiang Sha. Because he had to run both the hospital and the company, plus he encountered some miscellaneous things. He hadn't contacted Li Jingjing for a long time, but Li Jingjing didn't take the initiative to contact him. After not seeing her for a long time, Yang Cheng found that Li Jingjing's complexion looked a bit haggard. Wearing a simple white dress, carrying a light coffee bag, the girl with a ponytail looked more and more mature and elegant. Perhaps because she was a teacher, she was no longer the young female college student she used to be. She was more like an urban artistic young woman, delicate and charming at the same time, revealing a bit of self-confidence. At this moment, Li Jingjing was supporting her mother, while old Li was happily talking with Jiang Sha, who took the lead and walked towards Yang Cheng. Today, Jiang Sha was wearing a black suit and a red tie. His hair was combed until it shone, and his rather handsome face made him look even more handsome. He was talking and laughing with old Li, appearing very warm and humble. The waitress was just about to lead the 4 people to sit down, when old Li just caught a glimpse of Yang Cheng sitting by the wall and smiling at him. Little Yang, you're here too? Old Li still liked Yang Cheng very much, and sincerely showed a happy face. Li Jingjing, and Jiang Shua also saw Yang Cheng eating alone at the same time. Li Jingjing's mother was a bit unhappy, while Li Jingjing was a bit panicked. As for Jiang Shua, after frowning, he faintly smiled proudly. After the restaurant, I came here to eat a meal. I still have to go back to the company to work. I didn't expect to meet you guys so coincidentally. Yang Cheng directly excluded Jiang Shua from his sight. What are you eating alone? Why don't you eat with us? I haven't been able to eat with you for a long time. It's a rare opportunity. Old Li suggested. Behind him, Li Jingjing's mother suddenly had a face full of displeasure. After thinking about it, she pulled Li Jingjing forward and said coldly, Little Yang has to go to work later. We are here for Jingjing and little Jiang to talk business. Sitting together will delay things. Old man, if you want a drink, next time you specifically find little Yang. Talking business for Li Jingjing and Jiang Shua, Yang Cheng was stunned for a moment. Looking at Li Jingjing, that girl's face alternated between red and white, but she didn't say anything, lowering her head, not knowing what she was thinking. Yang Cheng's heart sank. Could it be that after not seeing Li Jingjing for a period of time, she had already gotten together with Jiang Shua? That's right, although I have met Brother Yang once, and Brother Yang is very welcome to reminisce about old times. But today we are talking business, and I'm afraid it will delay Brother Yang from going to work. Uncle, why don't you treat Brother Yang to a meal later, and at that time we can choose a better place to gather? Jiang Shua said with a face full of warmth. Old Li had always run a small business all his life, and when he was old he relied on his daughter's relationship. Now that the son of the director of education had come to curry favor with him, naturally his heart felt a bit fluttering. Thinking about it, it was indeed true. It wouldn't be good to have Yang Cheng join in on serious family matters, and it would also be a bit awkward. So he nodded, All right then, little Yang, that's all for today. Next time your older brother will treat you to a meal. Yang Cheng smiled indifferently. No problem. I'll be leaving soon after eating. You guys have business to discuss. No need to mind me. See, little Yang is a reasonable person. Li Jingjing's mother beamed as she said. Jiang Shua threw a provocative and contemptuous look at Yang Cheng. It was clear that in front of Yang Cheng, Li Jingjing's entire family was on his side, making Jiang Shua feel as if he had finally washed away the humiliation he had suffered in the Sky Province KTV and was able to hold his head high. So what if you drive a BMW? Doesn't the woman I want still have to follow me? Jiang Shua's heart was blooming with joy, and he glanced at Li Jingjing, who was standing silently to the side, like a quiet orchid with some greed and eagerness. Under Li Jingjing's mother's urging, the four quickly followed the waitress to the reserved room to eat, leaving Yang Cheng sitting alone by the wall, even though he was originally alone. From beginning to end, Li Jingjing didn't even look at Yang Cheng, and this made Yang Cheng feel a bit uncomfortable in his heart. In fact, Yang Cheng was also very clear that he already had a wife of Lin Ruoxi's level, and also a lover of deep affection like Xiang Wei. He really shouldn't be tainted by a pure girl like Li Jingjing. Moreover, previously Lin Ruoxi had treated him coldly, as if they were strangers and only had a contractual relationship. But now that he had experienced some things and understood quite a bit about Lin Ruoxi's family background, there was more and more inexplicable ties between the two. Moreover, after having sex as husband and wife, their marriage relationship had gradually stabilized. Yang Qing couldn't possibly leave Lin Ruoxi freely. He wasn't willing. Therefore, it might not be a bad thing to let Li Jingjing have a good home. However, the other party was Jiang Shua, which gave Yang Cheng a bit of a headache. Old Li and his wife were both born in poverty, and it was human nature to hope that their daughter would have a rich in-laws. But this choice was likely to make Li Jingjing suffer for a lifetime. After thinking about it, there was no good way. He couldn't use force to interfere in other people's family affairs. So Yang Cheng had to put it aside and plan to think about it for a while. At the same time, Old Li and his wife were also talking to each other, but their voices were very low so that the two young people wouldn't hear. After Old Li said goodbye to Yang Cheng, he actually felt a bit uncomfortable in his heart. After all, this way of speaking was a bit too cold. He hesitated and asked Li Jingjing's mother, Little Yang has helped us so much. It's not good to be so guarded against him. Li Jingjing's mother secretly glared at Old Li. What nonsense are you talking about? How can that matter be compared to my daughter's marriage? You don't want the director's son. You don't want a good future. and you delay Jingjing's life. Can you bear the responsibility? Old Li looked at Jiang Shuo, who was walking with Li Jingjing, and was talking to Li Jingjing enthusiastically. Li Jingjing smiled slightly, but it was a bit forced. Young people's matters were really hard to say. Old Li thought about it with a headache, and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Chapter 106. It was the weekend again. Yang Cheng sighed. That time passed quickly because he had to go to the hospital to pick up Lin Ruoshi the next morning. In the blink of an eye, 2 weeks had passed. Mother Wang had already prepared a sumptuous breakfast downstairs early in the morning. Knowing that Yang Cheng had a big appetite, Mother Wang had already made an extra portion of each breakfast out of habit. She would even help Yang Cheng turn on the TV and switch to the morning news channel. She had put in a lot of effort. At first, Yang Cheng wasn't used to this kind of pampered life. But later on, he realized that if he didn't let Mother Wang do this, Mother Wang would be extremely uncomfortable and would even get angry with him. In the end, he had no choice but to follow her lead. Young master, young miss will be back early tomorrow morning. Why don't you buy some flowers for a festive occasion? I think young miss will like it too. Mother Wang suggested with a smile. Yang Cheng drank the porridge in big mouthfuls and chewed on the oatmeal bun. He mumbled, "Flowers? What flowers?" "Carnations," Mother Wang suggested. "If young master wants to buy red roses, I think young miss will like it too." Although he didn't know what carnations meant, Yang Cheng still knew what red roses meant. He couldn't help but laugh. Mother Wang, with Ruoshi's personality, she will probably think that I'm spending money for nothing if I buy her a bouquet of flowers. Young master, Mother Wang said with an experienced expression. She persuaded, all women like flowers. Even if young miss pretends not to like it, she must be happy in her heart. I've watched young miss grow up, so how can I not understand young miss's thoughts? Hearing that, Yang Cheng felt that it was a little strange to buy flowers for his wife. However, he decided to buy a bouquet before going to the hospital tomorrow morning. Forget about the red roses, it was too mushy. He would just buy the carnations. At this moment, the doorbell of the villa rang. Who would drop by so early in the morning? Although Yang Cheng had only lived in Dragon Garden for a short period of time, according to his mother Wang, because Lin Ruoshi rarely showed up at social events, and a few close friends she had rarely visited the house, very few people knew about the villa, let alone visitors. Mother Wang walked quickly to the door and looked at the surveillance camera by the door. She was a little curious, but she still opened the door. A man and a woman were standing outside the door. The woman looked to be about 17 or 18 years old. She wore a pink hairband and looked very cute. Her watery eyes were filled with a touch of youthful charm. She was wearing a light yellow short-sleeved shirt and white shorts with cartoon patterns. Her slender and fair legs and her perky buttocks made her figure surprisingly well-developed. It didn't seem to match her face. As for the man, he was wearing sunglasses, a suit, and a tie early in the morning. He had a serious look on his face as he followed behind the girl. It was obvious that he was a bodyguard. When Yang Cheng looked at them, he suddenly frowned. It was actually Tang Dang, who he hadn't seen for a long time, and that silly bodyguard called Brother Little Yong. That day, when Yamada sect people attacked, it happened to implicate Tang Dang. After that, Flower Rain, one of the Yellow Flame Iron Brigade's group of 8, came to help send her back. Yang Cheng couldn't be bothered anymore. He originally thought that the matter had come to an end, and this girl had learned her lesson and wouldn't dare to contact him again. He didn't expect that she would suddenly come to his house early in the morning. Obviously, not only did Tang Dang not let him off, but she also knew the location of his house. "Miss, may I know who you are looking for?" Mother Wang asked kindly. Anyone would speak softly to such a pretty girl. Tang Dang smiled sweetly. "Auntie, I'm looking for Yang Cheng. Looking for our family's son-in-law." Mother Wang was even more confused about this girl's identity. She didn't think that she was a woman Yang Cheng found outside. With such a young girl, Mother Wang couldn't imagine that kind of situation. When Tang Tang heard Mother Wang call Yang Cheng son-in-law, a strange look flashed through her eyes. She then looked towards the door and saw Yang Cheng sitting at the western dining table eating breakfast. "Uncle," Tang Tang called out happily and waved her hand. Yang Cheng suddenly had the urge to dig a hole in the ground. Why didn't this little demon girl let him off? but she was still quite friendly to him. As the saying goes, one shouldn't hit a smiling person. He could only stand up and walk forward to ask, "What are you doing here so early in the morning?" Tang Tang pouted and appeared very delicate. "I was almost scared to death last time. You didn't even call me to comfort me. You haven't contacted me for so many days. Can't I come to you? I'm not your biological father. Why would I care so much about you? Also, it's not like I caused you to suffer." Yang Cheng said impatiently. There was still a steamed bun in his mouth that he hadn't finished eating. When Tang Tang saw that Yang Cheng didn't want to talk to her, the joy in her heart turned into grievance. She pouted and had tears in her eyes. When Mother Wang saw such a beautiful little girl like this, she felt pity for her and softly comforted. "Son-in-law, this little girl is so considerate. Don't say that. She's about to cry." Cry? She didn't even cry when she drove her Porsche to ram my BMW. Yang Cheng didn't take it seriously. "Hey, it's your fortune that our miss specially came to find you. Be more polite when you speak," Little Yong said angrily. Yang Cheng was too lazy to pay attention to him. When he saw Tang Tang looking like a bully, he only felt annoyed. His originally beautiful weekend mood was ruined. He sighed and said, "Okay, don't look like this. You're like a resentful wife who was dumped by a man. Tell me, why did you come here?" Tang Tang pouted her lips, sniffed with her nose, and looked at Yang Chun anxiously. My father wants to see you." "Your father wants to see me?" Yang Cheng felt it was strange and asked, "Why does he want to see me? I'm already married. Does he still want to see me as a son-in-law?" Tong Tong's face turned red. She shook her head and said, "No, it's because Uncle saved me last time. My father always wanted to thank Uncle, but he was busy with work. Today, he specially invited Uncle to see me." Yang Cheng lightly snorted. "Your father wants to thank me, not me. Why do you want me to go and see him?" "Because..." Tang Ting was at a loss for words. This was indeed a bit unreasonable and inappropriate. Little Yong, who was at the side, arrogantly said, "Don't think too highly of yourself. It's your fortune that our master wants to see you. Normal people can't even see him even if they wanted to. Sorry, I'm different. However, I'm not interested in seeing him." Yang Cheng waved his hand, indicating for the two to leave. "I'm on vacation today. I'm too lazy to go out. You guys can leave. Don't come back again." Little Yong's anger immediately rose. His face turned red as he said, "Don't be unappreciative. Although you're lucky to have saved our young miss once, it was just a coincidence. Our master is kind and generous. That's why he's willing to see you. Who do you think you are? Do you really think so highly of yourself?" Yang Cheng yawned. From the bottom of his heart, he did not want to argue with him. He said, "You guys can leave. I still want to continue eating breakfast." Seeing that Yang Cheng was about to close the door, Tang Tang immediately went forward and hugged Yang Cheng's waist. She anxiously shouted, "Uncle, don't be like this. My father really wants to see you. However, it's not suitable for him to come by himself. So what?" Seeing the girl's helpless appearance, Yang Cheng did not want to be too forceful. "So, Uncle, can you go and see him? I'm begging you. I've never begged anyone since I was young. It's only because you're my favorite uncle that I'm begging you." Tang Tang pleaded with a soft voice. Her pair of bright eyes were filled with sparkling dew. Her delicate and pitiful appearance made people feel sorry for her. There were two things that Yang Cheng could not stand. The first was the tears of an innocent girl. The second, he had not thought of it yet. "Are you sure you're not acting? Why do you look like a little white flower on a cliff that has just received dewdrops? It's not like you." Yang Cheng rubbed his head in distress. Tong Tong's expression became even more pure and cute. She was almost like a white, glutinous rice dumpling with sesame filling. She mumbled, "Uncle, please come with me. If you don't come with me, Father will definitely think that I've done something bad to make you angry. He might even put me in confinement. He won't give me pocket money. I'll be left alone at home." Wang Ma, who was at the side, was almost moved to tears. Pushing Yang Chun, she said, "Young master, the little girl is so pitiful. Let's just go with her. It's not an urgent matter anyway. It might be really inconvenient for her family." Even Mother Wang had said so. Yang Cheng was too embarrassed to let Tang Tang cry in front of him. He could only nod and say, "All right, I'll go with you. Don't make that expression again." When Tang Tang heard that, her tear-stained face instantly became as bright as the sun. It was as if the gloomy clouds had been swept away in an instant. Sweet and charming dimples appeared on her face. She hugged Yang Cheng's arm and said with a sweet smile, "I know you're the best, uncle. You'll definitely come with me." How could she look pitiful at all? She was just a little vixen. Yang Cheng finally realized that his cultivation was still shallow. He was even tricked by a little girl who was not even an adult yet. What a scam! The car that sent Tang Tang over was a black Audi A8. It seemed to have undergone some modifications. At the very least, Yang Cheng could tell with a glance that the car was bulletproof. It seemed like Tang Tang's father was also afraid. Little Yongji sat in the front passenger seat, while Yang Cheng and Tang Tang sat in the back. The other two black Passat cars were arranged in the front and back. There were also a few bodyguards dressed in black inside. Yang Cheng was a little surprised. It seemed like Tang Tang's family was not just ordinarily wealthy. Just this bodyguard team was comparable to the leaders of some small countries. It was obvious that she was scared by the kidnapping and surprise attack. Thinking back to when Zhou Dongsheng said that he was the one who ordered the attack at Maple Forest Leisure Center, Yang Cheng felt that these measures were necessary. After all, Zhou Dongsheng represented Dongxing. To be able to make the little underground emperor of Zhonghai East District personally send people, this kind of contradiction was enough to torment people. After the three cars drove out of Zhonghai City, they drove towards the southeast coastal area of Zhonghai. They went all the way to the leisure villa area near the beach before slowly stopping in a manor near the sea. The bright and beautiful sunlight, the salty sea breeze, and the endless azure sea in the distance. The entire Western garden-like building complex, with round roofs, low Roman-style pavilions, red flowers and green leaves interspersed with white houses, stretched out garish balconies, and many yellow vines with yellow flowers hanging high. Yang Chun followed the arrogant little Yongji and the others, and walked into the villa's living room together with Tang Tang. He discovered that there were at least a dozen bodyguards standing solemnly in the living room, as if a violent attack could happen at any time, and they had to be on guard. Just as they arrived at the staircase, an expressionless, handsome man wearing a dark blue short-sleeved shirt walked down. He had short hair, thin lips, and a sharp outline. His entire body seemed to be carved from cold stone, and his gaze was as sharp as a sword. "Master is waiting for you in the study. Follow me." The man coldly swept a glance at Yang Cheng. After he finished speaking, he didn't wait for Yang Cheng to follow and turn around to walk back upstairs. Facing the cold man's commanding tone and disdainful gaze, Yang Cheng wrinkled his eyebrows and stood in place, not moving an inch. Chapter 107. Yang Cheng could be lenient to others, but only if the other party respected him. Tang Tang noticed the change in Yang Cheng's displeasure and felt a burst of nervousness in her heart. She smiled apologetically and said, "Uncle, don't be angry that his dad's most trusted bodyguard, Dugazue. Uncle Azue has always been like this. He didn't mean to be rude to you." "Then he did it on purpose?" Yang Cheng sneered and said, "You were the one crying and forcing me to come. That's why I came. I don't have any interest in looking for abuse. If your attitude is like this, I can't help but wonder if your dad wants to drag me into his study to give me a good beating." Tang Tang's face paled. After several interactions, she knew that although the uncle in front of her was usually gentle, but if he was really angered, he would not give any face, so she hurriedly said, "Uncle, don't worry. Dad won't do that. Dad really wants to thank you. Call a popsicle to drag me upstairs like a criminal. Your dad's way of saying thanks is really strange." Yang Cheng was still too lazy to move. Dugu Zue walked to the corner of the stairs, and seeing that Yang Cheng still did not follow, his face suddenly became a bit impatient and coldly said, "I told you to follow. What are you mumbling about?" "I said, tell your master to come down himself. I will wait for him here." Yang Cheng glanced at him, turned around and walked to the sofa, and then slowly sat down. Everyone present revealed expressions of righteous indignation, very dissatisfied with Yang Cheng's attitude. Only Tong Tong's face was full of anxiety, but she did not know what to do. She wanted to persuade Yang Cheng, but was afraid that Yang Cheng would vent his anger on her, so she was in a dilemma. Dugu Zue's mouth slightly twitched, and with a somewhat evil smile, he gloomily walked downstairs again. Tang Ding finally couldn't bear it anymore. She was worried that Dugu Zue would use force on Yang Cheng. She had seen Dugu Zue's strength and was afraid that he would hurt Yang Cheng. So she immediately stood in front of Dugu Zue and said, "Uncle Ah Zue, don't be angry." "Uncle, he's a bit stubborn. He didn't mean it." Dugu Zue narrowed his eyes. "Eldest miss, Master is your father." This person spoke rudely to Master. "Are you going to help him and not help your biological father?" Tang Dang smiled bitterly and awkwardly. "It's not a big problem. Uncle is just a little stubborn. To me, anyone who dares to say that Master is not should pay a painful price." Dugu Zue could not be resisted. He stretched out his hand and pushed Tang Tang away. It looked easy, but his strength was actually hard to resist. Seeing this scene, Yang Cheng had a more favorable impression of this little girl in his heart. It seemed that her feelings towards him were indeed not fake. As for Dugu Zue, who was as cold as a block of wood, he simply didn't look him in the eye. It wasn't that Yang Cheng was petty and angry. It was just that he didn't have any enmity with Tang Dang and her father, and had even helped them a little. Being ordered around like a servant, he really didn't like it. He had returned to Huaxia to live a comfortable life, not to be bullied like a little brother. You think that just because you helped eldest miss with a little, you're so great that you're someone, right? Dugu Zue walked in front of Yang Cheng and asked with a mocking smile. This kind of expression again, this kind of attitude. Yang Cheng simply closed his eyes and waved his hand to dismiss Dugu. "I'm not interested in talking to bodyguards. Tell your master to come down immediately. If he doesn't come down, then I'm leaving." Dugu Zue's face darkened, and a hidden ruthlessness filled the air. "In Zhonghai, no one dares to speak to me like this. I dare you to say it again. Scram, I'm not interested in talking to you." Without the slightest hesitation, Yang Chun repeated it again, and even looked at Dugu Zue with a mocking gaze. The veins on Dugu Zue's forehead were already bulging, and his hands were clenched into fists, making cracking sounds. The muscles all over his body seemed to have bulged. "I'm very unfortunate to tell you that you'll have to go back lying down today." Just when Dugu Zue was about to be ruthless, a deep and calm voice came from the stairs. "Azua, don't be negligent." The one who walked down was a middle-aged man wearing a white shirt and suit pants. He wore a pair of gold-rimmed glasses and had a refined appearance. He should have been in a high position for a long time, as every step he took was dignified and emitted a calm and collected temperament from his bones. Standing beside the man was Tang Tang. Tang Tang patted her chest with a look of relief. She must have realized that she couldn't stop Dugu Zue, so she went upstairs to pull her father down. The man asked all the other bodyguards in the room to leave, and also asked Tang Tang to go upstairs. Although Tang Tang was unwilling, she couldn't go against her father's wishes. She could only reluctantly look at Yang Cheng and obediently ran back upstairs. As for Dugu Zue, seeing the man stop him, he obediently stood in the corner and silently stared at Yang Cheng, like a poisonous snake that could spit out its tongue at any time. "I'm really sorry. Zue's temper isn't very good, and he might have scared Mr. Yang." The man generously smiled and said, "Mr. Yang, please sit." Yang Cheng pointed to the sofa he was sitting on. "I wasn't scared, I just felt that he was a bit annoying, and I'm already sitting. You don't need to invite me." The man's face stiffened. He didn't expect Yang Cheng to still have an ungrateful look when he saw him. The words he originally wanted to say couldn't help but stop and put on a gentle and courteous smile. "Mr. Yang should recognize me. I am Tong Tong's father?" Yang Cheng couldn't help but laugh. "What are you saying? Do I have to know you?" "Today, your daughter begged me for a long time before I came here. This is the first time we met. How can I know you?" "My surname is Fong Zhongping. Fong Zhongping." Fong Zhongping kindly hinted he didn't believe that Yang Cheng really didn't know him. Yang Cheng was even more confused. Fang Zhongping? Are you a singer or an actor? A star? Have you ever acted or sung? Ahem. Fang Zhongping pretended to cough twice, thinking that Yang Cheng was deliberately pretending not to know him. But the years of work made him seem very experienced. He smiled and reminded, I work in the government. Zhonghai city government? Yang Cheng asked tentatively. Fang Zhongping laughed in his heart. In the end, he still recognized me. So he put on a look of don't get excited. Mr. Yang finally remembered. Yes, I am Fang Zhongping from the Zhonghai city government. Yang Cheng nodded and said, I usually like to watch the news, but I only watch the news of Huaxia. The people in the news are either the president or the prime minister. I was wondering why I haven't seen you on TV. You were in the Zhonghai city government. You should have made it clear earlier. Why are you talking in riddles? I really thought you were some great chief. I usually only watch the national news. I don't watch the city news, so don't feel strange that I don't know you. You can only blame that your official position is too low. My official position is too low? Hearing Yang Cheng's words, Fang Zhongping felt like he was about to vomit blood. He smiled awkwardly and said, Mr. Yang is really funny. I am Fang Zhongping. Although I can't be compared to the chief of the country, in this small land of Zhonghai, I have been the secretary of the municipal party committee for more than 2 years, and I was lucky to become a department-level official in my early 40s. There are not many people in the country who are as lucky as me. Speaking of which, I am actually a bit ashamed. Mr. Yang must have seen me before. Maybe you don't have a deep impression of me. Yang Cheng could see that this big brother was forcing you to say that you know him. You can't not know him. The brain of a government official is really different from the average person, but Yang Cheng was too lazy to argue with him. He smiled politely. So, it is the secretary of the municipal party committee. I have heard a lot about you. I have heard a lot about you. Fang Zhongping's face finally looked better. He secretly wiped his cold sweat. What do you mean by hearing a lot about you? I didn't know who you were just now. But after all, Fang Zhongping was a person who had been through a lot. He quickly regained his calmness. He smiled and said, Today, I invited Mr. Yang to my place. In fact, I have no other choice. After all, if I go to Mr. Yang's place, some media may find out. It may bring some inconvenience. So, Mr. Yang, please don't worry. If you didn't invite me, I would be more relieved. Yang Cheng rolled his eyes. Fang Zhongping could be considered to have figured out Yang Chen's temperament. He simply didn't take his position as the municipal committee secretary seriously. For so many years, who didn't flatter and fawn over him? To suddenly have a person who completely disregarded his position, Fang Zhongping felt that it was a novelty, and at the same time was not used to it. Mr. Yang must be joking. Tang Tang is my only daughter. If something happened to her, I really can't imagine it. Fortunately, Mr. Yang saved Tang Tang. I really should say some words of thanks here. Yang Cheng felt that this person's words were very twisted. He frowned and said, What do you mean? Really should? Shouldn't you say some words of thanks? I saved your daughter, not my daughter. Fang Zhongping also said some polite words. If other people heard his words just now, they would definitely say Secretary Fang is too polite. Secretary Fang, don't exaggerate, or something like that. But the Yangqing in front of him was not the kind of person who was taught by the thick and dark philosophy of society. He didn't fall for it at all. Dugade, who was in the corner, rushed in front of Yang Cheng, pointed at Yang Cheng, and said in a deep voice, Don't be so cheap. Azue, back off. Fang Zhongping said sternly. Dugade coldly snorted, but still obediently retreated to the corner. Yang Cheng faintly looked at Fang Zhongping. If he shouted a second later, Yang Cheng didn't doubt that his own slap would have landed on Dugazue's face. The smile on Fang Zhongping's face also disappeared. He lowered his head and thought for a while, then said, Mr. Yang, you really don't give me face. But after all, you saved my daughter, so I won't argue with you. But I hope you won't go too far. TSK, listening to your words, it seems like I owe your family. Yang Cheng smiled. Shouldn't you be thanking me? How come it's my fault for saving that girl? Young man, sometimes, don't be too arrogant. Don't play with fire. Fang Zhongping's face began to turn a bit ugly. He really couldn't say any words of gratitude to Yang Cheng. One was the municipal party secretary. The other was a small company's public relations officer. In his opinion, they were two different worlds. Yang Cheng indifferently shrugged his shoulders. What I said is the truth. Whether you're the municipal party secretary or a roadside sweeping uncle, it doesn't make any difference to me. I came here today because I heard that you wanted to thank me and meet with me. I really couldn't dissuade your daughter, so I came. I didn't come to see you put on a poker face. If you have something to say, quickly say it. I still want to rush home for lunch. Fang Zhongping's eyes revealed a touch of light. Since it's like this, then I'll be frank, Mr. Yang. I'm very suspicious of your identity. Chapter 108. Doubt. Yang Cheng curled his lips and said, "What's there to doubt about my identity? Since you know my address, you must have checked my resume. It's clear at a glance. There's nothing to say. A straightforward person doesn't resort to insinuations. The identity information of the Ministry of Public Security can't be trusted most of the time. You and I both know this." Fang Zhongping's eyes were as sharp as a knife, and the courage of a longtime leader appeared. Yang Cheng didn't care at all. "Then who do you think I am, Secretary Fang?" Fang Zhongping said, "I have a question. Why did my daughter encounter those things every time she was with you? The first time she was hit by a car, and the second time she was attacked by unknown people. You were there." The meaning of this sentence was clear. It was clear that Yang Cheng was inextricably linked with those people who attacked her, and even Yang Cheng was the real person who planned all of this. As for the reason, it was to get close to Tang Tang, so as to gain her trust and then make more terrible attacks. Yang Cheng knew that Tang Tang's matter was interfered with by Zhou Dongcheng. After all, the beautiful man, Zhou Dongcheng, had admitted it. But Yang Cheng was not stupid enough to say it for no reason. It was better to pretend that he didn't know anything. "I didn't do it." Yang Cheng spread his hands helplessly. "I also hope that you didn't do it, but who can guarantee it?" Fang Zhongping sneered. Yang Cheng thought for a moment and said, "I don't have any evidence to prove my innocence for the time being, but I'm not interested in collecting that evidence." "Don't you want to clear your suspicion, or you can't clear it all?" Fang Zhongping asked aggressively. Yang Cheng laughed and said, "Secretary Fang, you seem to have missed a possibility." "What?" "I don't care." Yang Cheng patted the sofa with one hand and said with a smile, "It doesn't matter to me whether I'm innocent or suspicious. Believe me, it doesn't matter to me, not to mention that I didn't do anything at all. Even if I'm really behind it, what can you do to me? What do you want?" For the first time in his life, Fang Zhongping heard someone speak in such an unbridled manner in front of him. The person did not put him in his eyes at all and looked down on all the wealth he represented. Status. Honor. In fact, Fang Zhongping's first reaction after hearing this was to feel a little confused. After a long period of silence, Fang Zhongping said with a grave expression, "Yang Cheng, do you know that the arrogance of youth often brings about bad consequences? That depends on who I'm being arrogant to, and whether I'm being arrogant or not. At the very least, you're a minor official that I don't even know. I'm really not interested in talking to you about this." Yang Cheng purposely dragged out the word minor. "You're challenging the bottom line of my tolerance." Fang Zhongping's voice was low, and there was a bit of anger in his eyes. He couldn't stand such a young and unknown person looking down on him in front of him. Yang Cheng's smile disappeared, and he said very seriously, "You're the one who put on a sour face first. I never provoke a dispute for no reason. Do you really think I don't dare to touch you? Your suspicion is enough to put you in the police station for a long time. If I'm ruthless, I can even let you stay in prison for a few years so that my daughter can live a safer life." Fang Zhongping said confidently. He believed that in the face of absolute power, Yang Cheng would give in. Unfortunately, he was ridiculously wrong. Yang Cheng smiled and slowly stood up from the sofa. After stretching, he provocatively crooked his finger at Fang Zhongping. "Secretary Fang, your words and behavior make me feel that you're the one who's still wet behind the ears. I don't know how you became the secretary of the Municipal Party Committee, but I believe that to be able to live in such a mansion, your identity is definitely not as simple as the secretary of the Municipal Party Committee, because government officials don't have that much money. However, no matter what your real identity is, I can clearly tell you that I, Yang Cheng, am standing here today, and I will stay in Zhonghai in the future. Even if you're not in Zhonghai, I'll still be here. As for now, I want to go home and enjoy my lunch. I don't want my family to worry, So no matter what decision you have, you can come at me. As for what you can do to me, I'm looking forward to your performance." With that said, Yang Cheng walked towards the door without looking back, and even planned to call a taxi in his heart. Fang Zhongping's entire face completely collapsed. His chest violently heaved up and down as he said in a deep voice, "You'll know what a stupid decision you made, what preposterous words you said. Ah, Zue, catch him." Dugu Zue, who was on standby in the corner, had long been itching all over. Yang Cheng's unscrupulous attitude towards Fang Zhongping made it extremely hard for him to accept. There were several times when he wanted to rush forward and punch Yang Cheng's face, but without Fang Zhongping's orders, Dugu Zue didn't dare. At this moment, hearing Fang Zhongping's order, Dugu Zue was like a cold-faced mechanical beast injected with stimulants. Like a sharp arrow, he quickly rushed in front of Yang Cheng, blocking Yang Cheng's path. "Do you want to cripple your hands or legs? I can fulfill your wish," Dugu Zue confidently said with a sinister smile. Yang Cheng very relaxed as he smiled and shook his head. "I don't want to be crippled, but if you like, I can cripple them all. You're courting death." Dugu Zue's anger soared to the top. With a roar, he lifted his right leg and swept it towards Yang Cheng. Dugu Zue's leg technique was very explosive. The instant his leg shot out, it brought along a strong gust of wind, whistling through the air, leaving behind an afterimage. When his leg was about to kick Yang Cheng's shoulder, Yang Cheng slightly shifted his body back, accurately dodging Dugu Zue's foot. Dugu Zue's offensive naturally wouldn't stop there. Before the first wave subsided, another wave rose. His two legs were like powerful springs, constantly flying off the ground towards Yang Cheng, bringing with it a violent sound in the air like a frenzied beat of a drum. One after another, afterimages of flying legs continuously attacked Yang Cheng. But every time Yang Cheng's footsteps moved slightly, he could perfectly avoid Dugu Zue's fierce big feet. After Dugu Zue consecutively kicked 40 to 50 times, he finally stopped, gasping for breath. He looked at Yang Cheng in disbelief, as if he couldn't accept the fact that his fast and fierce leg technique couldn't even touch the corner of Yang Cheng's clothes. Yang Cheng was still standing at the small area near the entrance. From start to finish, he only moved his feet within the 2 square meters area. Not only did he dodge all of the lightning-like attacks, he was even breathing calmly with a smile and looked at Dugu Zue with great interest. "Your leg technique should be inherited from some kind of ancient martial art spring kick. The technique is very sharp and direct, but it's a pity that your speed and strength are too poor. I reckon you're about the same as some elite special forces soldiers, but considering your age, it's already very impressive," Yang Cheng commented. Not only was Dugu Zue shocked, Fang Zhongping, who was watching the fight from afar, also broke out in a cold sweat. Naturally, he could clearly see the gap between Yang Cheng and his personal bodyguard Dugu Zue. Dugu Zue was a young elite special forces soldier that came down when he was involved in a miscarriage of justice case. Later on, in order to repay his kindness, he had been following him loyally. In these few years, anyone who tried to cause trouble around him, he could easily deal with them. Originally, he thought that even though Yang Cheng had some martial arts, there was still a huge gap between him and Dugu Zue. He didn't expect that the one with the gap was Dugu Zue. However, at this critical moment, if he didn't suppress Yang Cheng, Fang Zhongping wouldn't be able to put down his face. Therefore, he angrily said, "Those outside, come in, let's deal with this arrogant brat together." With this order, the 10 bodyguards that were originally standing outside the room on standby all rushed in, surrounding Yang Cheng, eyeing him like a tiger watching its prey. Among them included little Yongji and the others who had fought with Yang Cheng last time. While Dugu Zue felt humiliated that he wasn't able to capture Yang Cheng, he didn't believe that Yang Cheng could defeat him. He thought that Yang Cheng was only fast, but it wouldn't be good to go against Fang Zhongping's wishes. Therefore, he could only take the lead and surround Yang Cheng. In an instant, the living room became a mess. With Dugu Zue as the head of the bodyguards, they began to attack Yang Cheng with all their might. Punches and kicks were thrown, and they didn't hold back at all. Yang Cheng originally didn't want to hurt these people because of Tang Tang, But these people's attacks were not only merciless, they were also ruthlessly attacking his vitals. This made Yang Cheng unable to help but become angry. Yang Chun, who was just dodging, suddenly waved his palm and slapped it in a frenzy. Slap, slap, slap. After a series of loud slapping sounds, a few bodyguards were directly slapped unconscious and fell to the ground. Yang Cheng's footsteps were strange and unreasonably fast. After bypassing Dugazue's roundhouse kick, he went to the other side and fiercely slapped the bodyguards' faces. The bodyguards were slapped until they were dizzy and disoriented. Their faces quickly became red and swollen. Dugazue's 100 or so consecutive attacks all missed, and he had long entered the state of a wild beast. With a loud roar, he kicked explosively towards Yang Cheng's waist with a tremendous force. This time, Yang Cheng didn't dodge. Instead, he stretched out his hand to block this boundless kick. Bang! A muffled sound rang out. Under Dugazue's frightened gaze, Yang Cheng's hand pinched his full-strength kick. I told you, I didn't have enough strength. Why didn't you believe me? Since you've delivered yourself to me, I'll just cripple your leg. Yang Cheng seemed to be muttering to himself. After he finished speaking, he slightly twisted the hand that was pinching Dugazue's leg. Ouch! Dugazue let out a blood-curdling scream. At that moment, the bones in his leg were dislocated and twisted. Yang Cheng loosened his hand, and Dugazue fell to the ground. He hugged the leg that was in more pain than if it was broken. It was like it had been twisted into a fried dough twist, and he cried out incessantly. From the beginning, Yang Cheng had been enduring this guy's arrogance, but in the end, he still decided to teach him a lesson. The scene instantly became quiet. Other than the bodyguard's painful groans on the ground, the room was eerily quiet. A drop of cold sweat dripped down Fang Zhongping's forehead. He swallowed his saliva. Looking at the scene in front of him, he unrealistically hoped that he was having a nightmare. Who the hell was this young man? His own bodyguard were all elites from the special forces. They couldn't even withstand a single blow and were all knocked out. Yang Cheng mockingly looked at Fang Zhongping. Secretary Fang, I advise you to use your brain more. If I wanted to do something to you, I could strangle you right now. I wouldn't even need to borrow your daughter to do something stupid. Of course, don't think that I'm afraid of you. Let me explain to you, if you really want to think that way, I don't mind making you look like your bodyguards. After warning Fang Zhongping, Yang Cheng slowly walked out of the bungalow, leaving Fang Zhongping standing there in a daze. He walked along the winding path that was covered with cobblestones to the side of the road, not far behind the bungalow. The warm wind was blowing and the sun was shining. Yang Cheng comfortably breathed in the fresh air and put the headache that had just happened to the back of his mind. There weren't many cars on the road. Occasionally, there would be girls in revealing bikinis walking towards the beach, which was quite pleasing to the eye. However, the taxi that Yang Cheng wanted to call did not come. Suddenly, a sapphire blue BMW Mini Cooper came out from a corner not far away. On the empty and bright beach, this smear of blue became a beautiful scenery. The car slowly drove in front of Yang Cheng, stopped, and the window rolled down.